Call this meeting to order. Council work session, June 20th, 1 p.m. Open for visitor comments. Please state your name for the record.
Patrick Berkeley, St. Helens resident. Might seem ironic that I'm attending this afternoon work session. Got it? That working? Okay. Ironic to attend this afternoon work session to advocate to the city to end the practice of daytime work sessions in order to increase transparency and accountability to the citizens and to provide greater opportunity for citizen participation. I've several reasons for this. First, according to Oregon public meeting laws in itself, there is no such thing as a work session. So by calling something a work session does not reflect law. I think the work session idea is that it's an idea where the work is done by the council before it votes, so that votes are not typically taken. But back at my time on the school board with Susan, and at that time the practice of the school board was not according to law either. There are no such things as work sessions per se. There are regular, special, and emergency sessions, all of which are subject to Oregon public meeting laws. And also, I don't know if you are in the future planning a retreat or as such, but I just make sure that retreats fall under the category of public meeting laws as well. And just anyway, so that's one, is just to make it obvious that our practice reflects Oregon public meeting law. Second, I did some research this morning of a number of other cities, including Scappoose, Rainier, Cornelius, Dallas, LeGrand, Hillsborough, Forest Grove, and not every one of them has work sessions per se. Some of them just have their twice a month regular sessions. Those that do have a work session, which includes Scappoose and Forest Grove, their work sessions immediately precede the regular session on the same day in the evening. So for instance, if the council meeting is scheduled for 7 o'clock, work sessions scheduled for 6:30. And according to many of these, their work sessions are very small. It's kind of the opposite, that their work sessions are not as long as their regular sessions. I think that this is important because it seems that at these work sessions, much of the very important deliberation is done and the presentation of information which you base your decisions on, and by having it at this time excludes the possibility of the participation of hundreds of citizens. The only reason I am here at this time is I'm a public school teacher. School's out, yay, but during a good 9 months of the year, I am unable to come to these meetings. So then when I do come to a regular council, regular session, and I think this is the perception of many others, that there's kind of a sense of not understanding what's going on. Those are kind of more pro forma times where you've had your deliberations, you kind of made your decisions, you still discuss them, but then at the regular session you take your votes and you make the decisions. But it is not the time then when many of the citizens are able to be involved in the full discussion. And I think that does contribute to perception of citizens about how decisions are made. If they may come to a regular session thinking that there's going to be a lot of dialogue about something, only to find that discussions happened, let's take the vote, whereas a lot of the groundwork was done previously. A fourth thing is that I think that the schedule might deter interested individuals who are interested in qualified candidates to run for office as counselors, because if they were to, even though the council sets its agenda and you can change the times and places, I think if there is someone who is interested in running for a council and they look and they say, oh, we meet twice a month, 1 o'clock, I can't fulfill those responsibilities, that in itself might be a deterrent to other people who are interested in running for public office from doing so. So for those reasons, I would ask you to at least consider keeping it in mind, not maybe for this year, but for future meetings, to eliminate this practice of afternoon work sessions of the City Council to improve public participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Good work. Good work on keeping it down to 5 minutes. That was a lot of information in 5 minutes. You practiced that. Wow. You are good. You are good.
That's our education system. Way to go.
I think the one thing that we could probably do is just put a copy of the work agenda on the table for the evening session, and we could ask people, just ask for visitor comments, if there was any questions they had on our work session that they need any information on before we go ahead.
And one of the things I asked, I think it was last meeting or meeting before, was that the counselors explain their vote and why they voted for or against or abstained. And I think that's what we owe our citizens. So that if they did miss any of the discussion, the explanation of why we voted one way or the other, I think is owed to our citizenry.
So let's say if somebody had a question about our insurance, they would be able to grab this tonight and just to look at it and go, oh, that's what I wanted to know. I just want to know about. Yeah, keep them back there for the visitor comment in the evening, and I'll make a public announcement that if they would like to talk about our work session, now's the time before we go ahead and do some voting.
So, Patrick, remember being there until 1 a.m. at school board?
And I will say that we have a lot going on, and it's nice to have staff here and available, and they would still be available. But man, our work session is going to go probably to 3:45, and we're going to be back here at 5:45 today, and probably be. I think one time we ended up leaving about 11:05, I think, in the evening, and it was an all-day event. So
And today's going to be all day. We have the work
Yes.
session, then we have
and it's
3
not. I'm not trying to
hearings.
dodge any bullets. You have a valid. I'm just trying to make something work for right now. So thank you.
I asked the same question when I came aboard, and because I was very curious about that as well. And the answer that I got back was that the staff needs to be here in the work session, and we would have to pay them overtime, or pay them for being here. And so there is that in terms of cost. So it'd be interesting to do a cost analysis if we looked at Patrick's model.
But they're here in the evening, too.
The other thing is,
Yeah.
the other piece of it is 2 things that I do take time off from my paid job to come do this during the day. And it is now streamed online so people can watch it wherever they are. And they can make comments, they can send comments. So it is more accessible than it's ever been. But sometimes it's an inconvenience for me to take time off from work, use my vacation time to come down here. But I make the choice to do that. We take written comment every way. The agenda is out a week in advance. That's very public. I know day meetings are really difficult. There's lots of meetings I wish I could go to that I just can't get to.
Likewise, in the wintertime, I take my Wednesdays off. And I would much rather work.
But we appreciate the comment. The information is, we'll have to think about it and see what that means.
Okay. Other visitor comments.
Steve Topaz, I've got one question, but I totally agree with Patrick. We're losing 80% of our possible citizens from participating by having this midday. I know historically, for a long while in Oregon, only people who own property could vote, so most of the people were here when some of this tradition started. And coming from a New England tradition where town meetings, when they got to 12 o'clock, the chairman would say, "This meeting is adjourned. We'll reconvene tomorrow." So you didn't dead end a meeting, and typically the public servants worked and there was no overtime. That was their job. Now, reason I'm going to ask you a question, I'm going to give you a critique. I went to the Connection meeting, and found a number of statements that are very troubling. One of the statements was the limited amount of parking along the waterfront, where it was all parallel parking, not diagonal, and the bike paths were on both sides. And then going up, we're now on Plymouth Street, going up the hill, no parking for the entrance to Nob Hill Nature Park. Basically, what Nob Hill Nature Park has become a private park for the people on Nob Hill. I know we made the accommodation of basically by making the people happy there, limiting building height. Basically, we wiped out $80 million worth of possible building. By turning the industrial site into a park, we wiped out another $40 million. Next statement was going up the hill. Bicyclists would have to go uphill on the park because we have a vault on the other side, and we couldn't do that having to do with sewer. Basically, what that told me is we're not fixing the sewer plant. And then we had going down Plymouth Street, we couldn't have sidewalks because of the drop-off. Thinking about a simple wall with a sidewalk on top of it would easily solve the problem. It was not a great expense. And then we come to the circles and continuations, and it struck me that we have not decided, or in the plan, it was not decided to make the Route 30, Gable Road, Old Portland Road, Plymouth Street, the main drag coming into town. And hadn't decided what we were going to do with it. If you do that, you're going to turn part of Portland Road into a secondary street. The next part of it is the turnabouts. You could not really get trucks around. Basically, what we've said, we don't want any heavy industry going to where the paper mill is, down Railroad Avenue, or coming in from Old Portland Road. So the question is, what kind of industry or financial generators are we going to have here in Portland? The other comment, which was a scary part, and it goes to what's happening on at least what we've seen with the framework plan, the consultant said their peak travel was going to be 5:30 to 7:30. Basically, commuters coming back from Portland, which goes to the fact that the framework plans showed mainly condos down on the waterfront. Now we hear that there's a rumor about a hotel, and all of these come up to limiting people on the waterfront, local people, and getting rid of industry. What is the overall plan for the city? The other thing in industry, by having a patchwork road, there's no way of building a reasonable ferry system out of St. Helens. The best terminal location now is in Warren beside the Scappoose kayaking place, and therefore just bypassing any business by putting cars from 30 onto the ferry boats across and just eliminating any traffic, people or vehicle traffic in Portland. So I'm asking, what is the overall interest in industry here in St. Helens? Thank you.
Are you jumping ship on the ferry idea? Is that what I hear?
No, I'm saying the ferry can't land in downtown St. Helens. I can put it in Warren and use the channel.
Okay, and then your other question was what we're going to do with waterfront. And you've been to all the waterfront meetings
Oh, yeah.
2 years ago.
But that
You've
was,
seen the concept. You've seen the conceptual drawings.
I was
It's
there with
still-
the first drawings when we had the architects, and I can tell you
It
the
is
changes.
still moving forward. That concept, that was a conceptual drawing.
Okay, as I say, when I look at what the road plan was, you kill a lot of that. That's my point is the tool of this continuous or this connection kills a lot of that conception. That's the problem.
And the rest of the council, Doug and Keith, I don't think you guys were here, but we're gonna get a report from Jenny here in just a bit on the Riverfront Connector. Okay?
Steve, thank you. And for the record, Nob Hill Nature Park was residential zoned, not heavy industrial.
And
Well,
it's
when-
not, and it's not
It
a
was
private park.
it was zoned most recently as residential.
Okay.
When we made it into a nature park.
And that's where you took out the $50 million worth of value to the city. I agree that,
It was zoned residential.
I know, and that's where you took out the value. No problem.
Okay, I'm gonna step
Your
down.
perspective.
I'm gonna step down for a minute because I gotta ask the council something.
Okay, we'll continue then with visitor comments.
Okay, my name's Rick Scholl, 555 North 10th. I own a chunk of property on North 9th. It's kind of it's a rock bluff adjacent from the controversial rock bluff. I'm in the process of getting signatures for vacations, and I would like to ask the council for approval of a signature. I understand that it used to be automatic. The city was the automatic signature, but things had changed back with Brad Hendrickson's first project, and it's been proven very difficult. I've gotten 42 signatures, but it's been very difficult to get signatures, get a husband and wife, especially with that the Schleining wanting to mine that other side. So that's why I'm here.
So explain a little more about the effect that will cause.
The effect there is the effect. I'm just asking for a signature so I can pay $1,000 to go through the public process.
I get it.
Yes. So Jacob offered to come down and fill a little bit in on.
Please.
Yes.
Okay, so in order for the council to accept a street vacation application, state law says that there's this affected area geographically around the area to be vacated.
Is it 400 feet, Jacob?
400 feet and 200 feet, depending on which side it is. And in order for the city to consider a vacation, we need 2/3 of consent by area. So you have this shape, and we need to have 2/3 of consent of property ownership. And it's really easy when you have huge property owners, because you only need a couple signatures, well, unless they don't want to sign. If you have a whole bunch of properties, then there's a lot of knocking on doors, which Rick has experienced. Back in St. Helens Marina Street Vacation number 1 several years ago, when someone hired the now passed Mike Sheehan to kind of fight it, if you will, the city's practice for a long time was to assume that if there was city-owned property within that affected area, that it was an automatic consent, because if the city approved the vacation, obviously they would have consented. And Sheehan said, no, that's the wrong way to do it. We checked with our attorneys at the time who concurred with that. And so now what a potential applicant has to do is what you see right now, is ask for a signature on the consent form. So then that's bundled up with all the other signatures that we get, and okay, well, do we have the 2/3 consent? Hey, cool, we got it. Then we're locked and loaded to go through the normal public hearing process, which you've all experienced
And
several times.
the city does own 9% of my affected area.
9%.
9%. The Beltons had only, I think, had to get like 6 signatures to get their vacation done. I'm up to 42 right now, and I still need a few more.
So
And I'm asking for the city as well.
So he's not asking for approval or otherwise of the vacation area.
Yeah.
He's asking for you to sign a piece of paper as a property owner to say, okay, well, we consent you to go forward with the street vacation application.
With the process.
Yes. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Exactly.
Allow a hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, we can deliberate about that after you come up.
Okay.
Thank you. Keith, you want to weigh in on that by chance?
I don't have a problem with this. Where it's at is useless property. So just like we bought the 5 acres up there, the streets aren't necessarily where the streets are platted. They're going to have to wander by topography and whatnot. So that's kind of the same situation that Rick's at, is a street may not be where the city's designated street is. So to make useful of the land, we need to let them decide where the best place is for the streets and whatnot. So I don't have an issue with going through the process.
And your understanding with that, with your insight that way, Will there be mining involved?
No.
Okay, all right. I want that for the record.
There better not be.
I have
mining
made it very
involved.
clear to all the people that there will not be.
But,
Got it.
you know, city laws don't apply.
Ginny, you want to weigh in?
I think going through the public process is the right way to go. I think I want to hear from the community, and the only way to do that is to let the process happen.
Susan?
I'm struggling with the idea of making an exception for the mayor.
It's not an exception, so I need to clarify, Jacob's saying was, this is actually the first one that has ever been affected by city-owned property
Yeah.
since that what was the attorney's name?
Sheehan.
Mike Sheehan.
Michael Sheehan, just so you know.
Yeah. This is going to be standard from now on.
And this is not approving it, this is just giving me the next step to pay $1,000 and go before the planning commission or the city council.
So you're saying that was an exception and this is the rule prior and will be the rule again? Is that what you're?
From now on, yes. If there's city property involved, we have to sign off on it, just like all the other property owners.
And it's only so that you can start the process, not approving the process.
Right.
Approving
If I was asking for that, I'd be a lot more prepared.
yeah, I'd need maps.
Yes.
Okay,
Are you okay with it?
I'm okay with it.
So,
Okay. And so the
I'd
four
like
of
to make
us.
a motion that
that-
we
that-
have the council
I weigh in?
president. Sure.
Okay. The four of us represent the citizens, and the citizens own that property. And so what we're doing is we're going forward with the idea that we want to keep this transparent, everything out in the open as much as we possibly can. So I'm very much in favor of going through the process and opening it and continuing, probably getting into a public hearing on that. So I'm saying yes. So we have 4 yeses, an abstention from the mayor. So it's unanimous.
Thank you, council. And there will be a public hearing. It's a process, so. Okay, so, any other visitor comments?
You took more than 5 minutes.
I did take more than 5 minutes.
Tina Curry, Consulting. I saw on your agenda that you're going to discuss parking, and I wanted to give you the feedback that we got when we went door to door to all of the merchants downtown. What we discovered is that they currently use 45 spaces. That would be the maximum number for employees within this downtown area. Plus 16 is potentially the maximum from the Muckle building. And what we found out when we were asking people where they were currently parking or if they had a policy for their employees, actually a lot of them do have a parking policy for their employees, but their parking policy for their employees is just that you can't park in front of our business. So what is happening is that everybody is just playing this game of shift the cars. And there's a couple exceptions to that rule that actually go, no, we park way up there and, to leave it free. But those couple of people would not impact it enough that you would have just random spaces available for guests that are now wanting to come and park. And no one, in my opinion, parks in this Plaza Square on the weekends really at all. I mean, I'm at the gift shop. I can see what's going on Main Street and around the square, and there's no one parking in that area. So we are calling a meeting with the merchants just to give them feedback because we went around and did this survey, and we're going to get back to them when we do our maps. We have some new maps that are coming out. But I just wanted to make you guys aware that if they were to agree to put a policy in place, which would be to park in the free spaces behind City Hall and at 2Cs with their employees, there would be ample parking on the street for guests. But that would have to be their, just, if they're going to all get together and say, this is our new policy so that you don't park in front of my place and I don't park in front of your place. I just wanted to let you guys know that that was what we found out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Annual report, insurance agent Chris Iverson. Hagen Hamilton Insurance.
Terry just said hold the applause. So.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
They always say you save the best to last, and I say I'm pretty high up on the agenda, so that must tell you something. We had a pretty good year this year as far as insurance was concerned. We didn't have any huge claims that come to mind. A few minor ones. Our history over the last 6 years, I went and reviewed it, has been pretty good. We've had a couple claims that were that I don't know how we could have avoided. We haven't had any repetitive type claims, and those are the things you normally look for. Is if things keep happening over and over again, you might need to take corrective action. I just haven't seen that type of stuff. Went and looked for other markets other than the market that we're in right now. There really isn't any other markets out there that can do a substantial job for cities and counties. City, county insurance, where we're currently at, is actually an insurance pool that was formed by its members. And nobody has come into the state and said, hey, we want to compete with that and we want to beat that. And the coverages in that company are so much broader than we can go out and buy in the general market. I insure quite a few public entities, and one of them I had to take out of the pool, and the increase in premium was dramatic. I had to break it up into 5 pieces and go to 5 different companies to find all the insurance that we can buy in one place right here. You're going to see that there is a fair increase in the premium over last year versus this year. Most of that is due to the fact that you guys are growing. You guys are growing by leaps and bounds. We fill out every year. You fill out a general liability worksheet. Some of them are up 39%, some of the numbers here. That's what the major driver of this premium is just the fact that you guys are getting bigger. We're adding cars, we're adding buildings, we're adding employees, and when we do that, premiums go up. I did go ahead on the second page, and I quoted a couple options for you. If you remember right, some of you were here a while back, we have $10 million worth of liability coverage. We were able to buy for a couple of years there. We were able to buy an additional $10 million worth of liability coverage, and it was really cheap. It was like $3,000 or $4,000 for another $10 million, and you guys chose to do it. Last year they lost those reinsurance contracts, and so they did not offer it. This year they have a new reinsurer, and they offered an additional $5 million in limits, but I just don't think it's cost effective. They're asking $9,000 for an additional $5 million, so I can't really recommend that you go with that. I mean, unless you're really sold and you really feel strongly that you need additional $5 million over the $10 million that you already have. The one area right underneath that I am seeing a lot more claims in is the cyber liability. It's cyber coverage. Currently, we have $50,000 worth of cyber coverage built into the policy. So if we have a cyber claim, somebody gets into your computers and steals information, things like that, and you have to follow up for the next 3 years. We currently have $50,000 worth of coverage. I've quoted several different options here. We quoted $200,000, and that would be an additional $1,820 a year. $450,000 would be an additional $2,080 a year. $950,000 would be an additional $2,340 a year. I strongly urge you to consider those and consider what limits you'd want. I don't think 50,000 is adequate
I don't think
anymore.
So what's the norm out there, Chris?
You know, I've seen it anywhere from 250 to 500,000. I don't know anybody, even any public entities that carry the $950,000 worth, because that'd give you actually $1 million. It'd give you the 50 on the policy and the 950. I'm seeing between 250 and 500 is what I'm seeing out there.
It's like the 450 is kind of the best bang for the buck.
I think so too. That's what I was looking at. I think the best, you know, you're only talking, you're $1,820 for 200,000, and you're another, what, $200 for
Yeah.
for 450,000. So my recommendation would be to go with the 450,000.
So we have consultants do our computer system, do our IT and that kind of thing. Kathy, do you know if they're, by chance, if they are insured and if they are covered and what their liability concerns are?
Everybody that I've ever had a cyber claim from or read about a cyber claim or heard about a cyber claim has a company that does exactly that for them. I have no experience. I've read nothing in the industry information out there that says anybody's ever been successful with going back after their cyber provider, their security company. Now, I'm not going to say it hasn't happened, but I haven't read about it yet, and I haven't heard about it yet.
Because we're responsible for the safety of our data.
I would guess, and I guessed if I were a cyber company providing those services, I would make you sign a contract that says I have absolutely no fault if somebody hacks this.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, though, I've had 2 claims here in the St. Helens office for local businesses that have had cyber attacks, and that's been all within the last 16, 18 months. So
I think that might be a good question that we ask our consultants if they're covered and how much.
well, and if you're covered,
Yes.
yeah, if the city's covered, I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, 98% of the cities and counties in the state of Oregon are insured in this program. So the only cities and counties that are not are either ones that they kicked out of the program for really, really, really bad behavior because they hardly kick anybody out, or
Or big enough.
are self-insured.
Big
City
enough.
of Portland, City
Yep.
of Salem, City of Eugene, the self-insured guys. Everybody else is in there, so that tells me that, besides the search that I've done, that tells me that there's just nobody out there that's even close to competitive anymore. And I know these premiums are pretty high, but you guys are pretty big. You guys are just getting big.
The only thing I don't see on there, Chris, is we just talked about adding the canoe on here.
Yeah, and we did do that.
Okay.
It's on there. We've got the canoe added, and we were waiting for information on the trailer, and I think we got that, correct?
I
I
sent,
brought Alexis with me today,
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
I sent the information I could find on it.
The
Yeah,
canoe as,
appreciate that.
canoe as a possession is added as an attribute, or the canoe including the trip that they want to take, is that covered?
It's added on the inland marine schedule. It would be covered at city property as liability, as long as the city maintains control over it.
And if they take it out on a trip, it's covered.
If who takes it out
Liability.
on a trip. That's the key. I mean, I worry about just passing that along to any individual without something written down there. But the city would be covered. Now, would the individual be covered that is in charge of that canoe? If the city were a city employee, I don't have any issues with that. If he were a volunteer, I don't have issues with that. If it's just some person we gave the canoe to and said, here, take this out, and he loads it with kids and it sinks,
Yep.
may not be coverage for that. So we have, it's like anything else that the city does. As long as the city maintains control, as long as the people are volunteers for the city, on most cases, and I can never say absolutely because it's going to depend on how the lawsuit comes in, but in most cases, that's going to be covered by the city's insurance.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? Do we have to come up with a decision right away on the cyber?
No,
Okay.
no, we've got, it renews the 1st
Okay,
of July. So if you guys get back to us
all right.
by next week, that would be wonderful. And also, Matt's question on crime coverage, we provided the auditors talked about increasing the crime coverage, and so we got Matt the numbers on that, and I believe he's going to talk to you guys about that.
Okay,
So,
thanks,
Anything?
Chris.
thanks, you guys. Good
Yep.
talking to you.
Yep.
We probably
Okay.
would need to make a decision because we don't have another meeting until,
Well, I think the
afterwards.
staff needs to weigh in on that.
well, definitely. But
Yep, thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, annual CDBG revolving loan fund program report, Susan Wagner of CAT. How's it going, Susan?
It's going.
Good.
It's busy, crazy. So, good afternoon. I'm Susan Wagner. I'm with Community Action Team here in St. Helens is our headquarters. We serve Clatsop and Columbia and Tillamook counties, all three areas. We have innumerable programs that I think you probably all are familiar with, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But the City of St. Helens, and I know that I gave a little brief report in your packets. I presume you have them. The City of St. Helens has been an active partner in our housing rehab program for many, many years. And we truly appreciate the partnership. You were actually a lead applicant, as Kathy will recall, in 2011 that was very successful. The City of Astoria has just been awarded a similar grant for $400,000, so we are ramping up with that program right now as well. Your particular revolving loan fund continues to be stable. We have not made any more loans, as I understand. I am new to the program. Sally has been your representative for many, many years, but now that falls on my desk. So forgive me if I'm not providing you with quite enough information of what you're looking for, so please let me know what else you need to know. Currently, the balance is still at around $24,000 of available money to lend for affordable housing purposes. It can be various things, including, excuse me, loans for affordable housing. It can be loans for rehabilitation or other purposes. That as long as they fall under HUD's rules of affordable housing related. We just are currently wrapping up excuse me, Columbia County CDBG project as well. They were only awarded $300,000 because of limited funding availability in 2015, so that ran 2016 and 2017. So we have just finished up with them as well. That was a wonderful program because it was a grant program, not a loan program. So we were able to serve a lot of folks that we weren't normally able to. For instance, manufactured homes in parks. Never with CDBG funds can we touch those except if it's a grant. So they had changed some rules. We were allowed to do that. The self-help acquisition rehab program, which I think Sally probably spoke to you about, was very successful. We had 15 new homeowners because of that program. That program enabled people to take advantage of the brief moment in time where foreclosures were outweighing people buying. And so it created a glut on the market of available houses. Unfortunately, there were many, I guess you would call them prospectors, who went out and bought all those homes, just let them sit. So our households had a harder time finding those programs, those properties to work into that program, but we still were able to serve 15 new households, so we have 15 new homeowners throughout our 3 counties. We have some new programs, including the self-help owner-occupied rehabilitation program. So that's people who own their homes. Something, for instance, in the city of St. Helens, if there was someone who had a home, in fact, we're talking to a couple of people right now. They have homes that need repairs, but they aren't able to come up with the money for those funds, for those repairs. So they can come to us, go through the program. We work as a technical assistance program to help them get either funding, find grants, find loans that are approved through the cities, and then they are able to do those repairs themselves. If there's something that requires a subcontractor, that can still be paid for. But again, that's the type of thing that the St. Helens revolving fund could be used for. We have veterans repair, home repair program right now, which is grants available to veterans who need repairs on their homes. So if you know of anyone, please let us know. There's not a lot of money, but we're hoping to serve probably 9 households. We're already working on 3 of them. So It's a great program. We're hoping that the state re-ups it because it's a great program. Veterans are particularly vulnerable and are particularly in need of repairs to their homes. Down payment assistance we still have available, and we have a December deadline. So if you know of anyone who is looking to purchase a home, they're a first-time home buyer, $15,000 is available. It comes in as a soft second on their home, but it helps them afford a house, and particularly with the market the way it is, and I know you all are very well aware of what's going on in St. Helens, it's difficult to find homes. And we'll have people who get qualified for $180,000, but they can't find a house to buy. So we're looking at that. And then Healthy Homes is our last program, and I did bring brochures on most of these, and I'll leave them with Kathy. Healthy Homes is a program for persons who are on OHP, the Oregon Health Plan. It provides for repairs to their homes that will make the home safe and healthy for them to live in. If there are constant mold issues that are causing them to be in hospital regularly, be readmitted, or trip and fall hazards, same thing. We are able to provide repairs, or we can subcontract for those things so that we can get these homes safe for these people to live in. Mold is a huge issue. As, you know, I learned moving to Oregon 15 years or 14 years ago. Never heard of that before. It came from Colorado. It's like, what's mold? So it's a great program as well, though. And again, I will leave these. If you need more brochures, please let me know. We'll bring them right on over. So that's the CAT CDBG in a nutshell.
Wonderful.
You covered it very well.
Think
Thank
so?
you, Susan. Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Annual Parks Commission report, John Brewington and Carmen Dunn. It's just Carmen.
Yeah.
Hi.
Carmen?
So I'm Carmen Dunn. I'm new to the Parks Commission, so bear with me. John was supposed to be my backup. So I am going to read through all my notes. I kind of scoured through meeting minutes from the past year, so that's where all this is coming from. And then if you guys have questions, I can take those back and report back to you on them. So
Okay.
that's how this is going to go. So I wanted to go through our updates and accomplishments from the past year, so I'm going to go kind of park by park. So for Nob Hill, we had a lot of volunteer time put in through work parties and overall cleanup and maintenance. Native Plant Walk was held in March, and the most recent work party was in April. The staircase is built, and the Scappoose Watershed Council is donating plants to plant along there. The kiosk is installed, and a new wooden sign with the park name on it has been mounted on the kiosk. A lot of new users because of the stairs. Heine Human Fenced Dog Park is now open, and it includes a bench and water inside the dog park, along with 2 picnic tables, one inside and one outside of the fence. McCormick Park, the dog park is well received and being well used. The creek area is being utilized, especially during nice weather, for picnics. The disc golf course is getting a lot of use. Some of the improvements we'd like to see that are also echoed by park users are the courts, tennis and basketball, and more restrooms. Courts are part of the Priority 1 improvements in the master plan, and the trails are in good shape and being well maintained, along with the Lions Club repairing the exercise stations. The cannon is back, and there's big things happening at the Veterans Memorial. So for the Veterans Memorial, the expansion plan was brought to the commission and approved. They hope to have phase 2 complete by Veterans Day 2018. Final design is coming soon from what I understand, and construction was supposed to begin after Labor Day. Funding from the State Parks Grant and from the Veterans Group is how that's happening. Walnut Tree Park, the Kiwanis have been mowing it. Parks crew doing a good job with maintenance. Grays Cliff Park, a grant was received for installing restrooms at Gray Cliffs Park, from my understanding. There's more improvements that are on our wish list, including fencing the dog park, fixing the trail from Wythe Street, and adding sand to the far end, as well as new signage and paving the existing gravelled parking area to allow for more efficient parking. So those are all wish list items, not sure when those are going to happen. 6th Street Fields, the dugouts need some work as they're in pretty rough shape. This is on the priority 1 list in the master plan. Other concerns are parking during the games because the streets become pretty packed over there. Godfrey Park, we had a grant that we were going for $30,000 towards a natural play area. We applied for it, but it wasn't received. But we're still exploring the potential for the priority 1 improvements in the coming year, which would be the natural playground installation and a new swing set. Sand Island is kind of exciting and new. Camp host and shuttle preliminary discussions and interest was brought to us. So the commission is open to hearing a more fleshed out proposal and wanting public input early in the process. Dog parks in general, suggested improvements at the various parks with low cost, but to help with awareness, safety, and to reflect current rules. So those have been proposed, and I'm not sure where they're at in actually implementing those. Campbell Park, a lot of use by the various softball teams right now. Upcoming priority 1 improvements include upgrading the restroom amenities and fixtures, upgrading the existing picnic shelters with utilities, and then more upgrades in FY19 and 20 would be tennis courts and upgraded playground equipment. The Boise property was toured by the commission last summer, and there was overall interest in it, but it sounds like nothing's happening with that yet. The Parks Commission had recommended that the council go forward with making an RV park, day park, and trails on the Boise property. And then some other items that I had not related to specific parks was the Parks Commission's openness to working with the Arts and Cultural Commission for painting contests. So right now they're painting trash cans for 4th of July, but we mentioned in one of our meetings that we would be willing to work with them on offering up picnic tables for painting in the future if there's still interest in that. Parks employees overall doing a great job at maintaining and keeping our parks looking nice and functional. It comes up in all of our meetings, so we just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of them. And then more stuff to come that we're kind of actively working on is the Bikes and Pedestrian Committee is being combined with the Parks Commission. So that'll be a good step forward on making progress. We have a subcommittee that we're forming for a walking trail or urban hiking trail. So that there's more to come on that. Defining what our Friends of Parks groups mean. So we're trying to define that and see how they would function with the city. So more to come on that. The parks brochure is pretty dated right now. We had some traction on it with a previous St. Helens High School student and a PSU grad, but her time was volunteer time and she had competing priorities, so that's kind of fallen off. So we are hoping for some funding in the future to be able to help move that forward and get an updated parks brochure. We are all encouraged by the St. Helens Rec program and potential for getting more of the community utilizing our parks, so that's pretty cool to see. Conversations are continuing on improvements at to the trail at Dalton Lake. And then overall priority 1 improvements are where the focus is going to be in the coming years. Grants, there's the most recent one for 2018 Build Grant Program to improve transportation on the St. Helens waterfront with a boardwalk and street extension. So that would connect the existing park to the new development with a public boardwalk and greenway trail at the water's edge. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And then I have a bunch on the funding and budget. So overall, we're rich in property and poor in manpower. Recommendations by the Parks Commission a while back was to perform a review of the park use fees. So I don't know if that's happened or is happening. And then we were all really encouraged by the update from Matt Brown with the focus on priority 1 improvements from the Parks and Trails Master Plan. So current priority 1 improvements total close to $400,000, and the city staff outlined initial focus for some of those. So I have those listed out, but I'm not going to go through each one because I've talked about the parks a lot, each individual park. So we noted in a couple of our last meetings was that there was overall concern about the confusion between about the taxes for Greater Park and Rec District. So when that comes up, there's just a lot of confusion about the name and whether it's affiliated with the city or not. And then the overall impression is that the public thinks this comes to the city, but it's actually going to the swimming pool. And then we also had concerns about the swimming pool getting free water. So that was just some of the things that we discussed recently. And then overall grants will help with funding limitations, and a big thank you again to the city staff who seek those out and spend time applying to those. So
Good job.
questions? Anything that you want me to take back to the next Parks Commission meeting for us to work on, focus on?
Well, I've got to say that this is the Parks Commission, as long as I've been involved with the parks, this is the A-team. This currently is the A-team. You guys are knocking the ball out of the park every meeting.
Good.
And so,
So to speak.
and finding it too, right?
That part's tough.
So, yeah, you're a new member, and thank you for coming forward and presenting that report.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good job on the presentation.
I
too.
think this is the most comprehensive report we've had.
Oh, good.
Parks Department.
It's all from minutes, so good job
Good
to the
job.
city staff for taking
You
good
can't go
notes.
wrong.
We're gonna tell John just what a fine job you did.
And yes,
Right?
Exactly.
and
gonna
yes,
have to
we
give
know
him
we
a
are
hard time for
we are
his
Parks
back.
Rich. We are Parks Rich. We have that. We have we're afforded that luxury to be Parks
Definitely.
Rich. So
Yep. Agreed.
good work.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
It's a priority.
Okay, follow up regarding fair building. Tracy Murray
And Janice,
and Janice.
you made it, Janice.
Made it, but the union might be calling, so I might have to. We're in union negotiations.
Okay, so I know that we had asked for some documentation. I don't know what. That's the last I recall. You guys coming up? We talked about that.
And for ledger,
Yes.
that was brought down here to the city, so I don't know.
Has anybody had a
who it
chance to look
ended
at that?
up with.
I
did have
didn't
someone
look at it.
on Maybe Matt.
Yeah, Matt saw it. We saw it.
Yeah, we gave the council copies of what they handed in for.
Okay.
It was just kind of a basic bank rec of,
It
you know,
wasn't
what
exactly
came in
I
and
was
what went out.
Yep. So I think more importantly, though, is that we're actually, I mean, with this rec program, I'm sure you guys have heard about it, right?
Right.
We're wondering what's the best use for that facility, you know, because we have to serve the community as a whole. So that's kind of been the question on my mind. I don't know about the rest of the council.
No, I agree.
You agree?
Totally agree. I mean, I think that facility, if it can be utilized by youth and a rec program, I think it's a great facility. I think it's in a great location next to a park. It seems like it would be very effective to use that. I'm glad you're here, because I'd like to hear from you folks of what you think about that move and what you think about the way we're thinking.
I would agree that that would be a good use for it. You know, I think we've had a long run with it, the way we've operated it.
Was it mid '80s that was built?
Oh, it was before that.
Was it before that?
Probably well, it was a construction company when Boise purchased the property. And then we formed,
Hold on, it's just Matt.
Got one of those IKEA chairs?
He's always
Is that the
trying.
one that goes backwards?
He's always trying to steal the spotlight.
so Boise purchased the property with no real plans to do anything with it. And so we got an employee group together that formed the Fitness and Recreation Association. And we became incorporated, and we bought some equipment. We put the gym floor in. We had an open house. We signed up members from the Boise Mill.
And their family members, yep.
I think it was the mid '80s.
Yeah.
Because I started in '82, and it was just shortly after I started there.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Well, if you started in 92.
'82.
Oh, 82.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Keith Stent. He forgot to signal.
Forgot to break.
But, you know, things have changed, obviously,
Yes.
with the population at the mill. We've opened it up to the public
Mhm.
to become members. If there's a better,
And we've looked at the building, and there's a little bit of maintenance issues there, to be honest with you girls. Yes, so.
well, and that's one of the things that we've held off on because in the past, we've paid the maintenance,
Uh-huh,
but we had a signed lease.
sure.
So
Yep.
it's kind of been in a holding pattern
Sure.
since the city bought the property.
But, you know, we're really trying to target our youth with this, this rec program and give them things to do, not just youth. I mean,
Well, yeah,
the
across the
citizens,
age
yeah,
span.
yes, but,
Yeah.
so,
Community
I want to hear exactly how you feel about us doing where we're going. If that's the proper path or not. I mean, I need to hear that from you. Because last thing we want to do is go forward on something and then, oh, they shouldn't have done that or whatever. So,
I personally don't have an issue with it. I think the people who frequent it will be disappointed.
mhm.
But, you know, the bottom line is it's your property, so.
so,
Okay. All right.
question about your equipment there. What are you gonna do with it? What's gonna happen there?
We have someone who comes in once or twice a year to service it.
Uh-huh,
And, you know, if he needs new cable on
Pulleys,
it
yeah,
or anything. So we would probably ask him to come in and kind of give us a ballpark estimate of what it's worth
mm-hmm.
and then sell it.
And then, this is an awkward question.
Okay.
Very awkward.
I'm so glad you're here.
It's so awkward, you probably won't want to answer.
Oh,
Would-
called.
What do you do with the income of that, the revenues that are manifested from that equipment? Where
What
does
would
that
we do with it?
Well, yeah, where
It's
does
not
it-
awkward at all because we've had the conversation.
Oh, okay, good.
Because we also
you-
have a bank
Separate.
account.
Uh-huh.
And what we would do under our articles of incorporation
Uh-huh.
is donate those to various charities.
You are wonderful.
Well, that actually nonprofits have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and in fact, our original bylaws said that if it dissolved, the assets would be distributed among the members.
Yeah, but you
But
can't.
we checked into it and, yeah, but we can't, so. But it
One
would
for
be a great
you,
help to
one
those
for
charities
you,
we can't
one
help.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a remarkable resolve on that. I think I think that'd be very effective. If we go forward with that,
And I think that most of us agree that that's the direction that we want to go.
And we're not at this alone. We're with the school district too, you know, I mean, we're not going into this. We're
Yeah.
trying to, and the IGP
I have no hard feelings
has
over
some
it.
stuff, okay.
I really don't.
Yeah.
You know, to be honest, I've been at this since 1980 something,
Sure.
so.
Well, I don't know. I would definitely like to continue the talks between you, Matt, and John, and see if we can negotiate maybe even on that equipment. I don't know. That's just personally me.
Yeah.
If we have people a place to work out, if it's feasible. I don't even know if it is. If it's not, you guys
Yeah.
have the auction and open the door and garage sale, and here you go.
The only concern I guess I have is that right now we don't have a lease, so I don't know liability-wise where that puts you, where it puts us. We do have our insurance policy. and
Okay.
It's $1 million liability.
Okay.
I think that's
But
why.
God, our guy just left. We could have asked him.
Yeah,
too.
yes.
Dang it.
He was our classmate too.
Was he?
So, acting on this, if we made a decision to move forward on this, acting on it today or tonight would be no problem, and that would probably mean within 30 days, I would assume, or
I was
I-
just
Or
going to
sooner.
ask, is there a time that would work better for the members and all that and whatnot?
I think their membership goes through the end of the month.
Yep.
I believe they're all on a first end of the month basis or not.
No, I would have to go check with Debbie. She's the one who, runs that
Sure.
with the members and stuff. Because some people, they summertime they stop, then they go to the winter time, and then they start paying. And some pay 2 or 3 months in advance.
Sure.
So I would have to check with her and go through all those records and either
And that's,
prorate them or whatever.
Yeah, I think 30 days would be very difficult
Yeah.
to get people's memberships either ended or
So what I was
prorated,
wondering
refunded.
is if we did end up buying that equipment, could we actually carry that little bit of,
A transitional.
yes.
A transitional phase to allow
Yeah.
people to finish.
Well,
That's
and that would
all I-
allow
That's what I
us
thought.
to, you know,
You know,
prepare to sell off the equipment if you decide you don't want it. And,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
30 days.
I
would
just
be-
thought a transitional phase because it's going to take a while for you guys to figure stuff out. We're not going to be ready and to do anything immediately.
Mhm.
So I think that
Well, maintenance issues.
more time is needed for both parties to get ready. So I think some kind of
So I guess where we're going with it is maybe we want the ability though to be able to, if we want to utilize that gym, that
Access to the-
yeah,
to the big
we're going to come in and use the gym, I guess, you know, so to speak. Not interfere with the workout and the gym occasionally. Yes, for right now.
shared
So we
space.
need
Can I ask, like, what you would do in the gym?
volleyball, basketball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we had someone who was interested in having tap dancers in there.
Yeah.
And
No,
for those of you
that
that went
floor.
to the floor,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
No.
hope you can appreciate why we would do that.
No, and if Opus ever decided they wanted to become part of the rec program and give people an option, they could. You know, we have those facilities. That there's people that have a business that do that. So if they opted into that, we talked about our Parks and Rec really went in depth, and we even talked if somebody in Kung Fu wanted to sponsor for a month, and then try to get people to continue. To get people involved. So we really are reaching out and doing a lot in this Parks and Rec district. Well, it's not a district.
I would just caution that's a pretty expensive floor, and tap shoes are not.
Yeah.
No.
No.
No, it's a beautiful floor.
It is. It is.
So I'm thinking more the transition, possibly rather than, you know, use is maintenance issues, catching up on maintenance, doing those kinds of things, looking at the jobs that need to be done.
What is going on over on the sidelines today?
I'm gonna go buy new chairs
I'm
tonight.
sorry, Doug.
No problem.
There's also a camera security system there
Yeah, cool.
that right now it's not functioning, but we've had it for years, and it's been very helpful. It's inside the gym, inside the workout area, and on the exterior. And the computer company down in the courthouse square, I can't remember their name, but they've done some work on it. So if that's something that you guys would be interested in.
Matt, so we need to look
bringing
at
that
our
back.
insurances because they're probably going to be re-upped for insurance or something. I understand that we need to be talking to Tracy and Janice about that.
And we just renewed it a few months ago, didn't we?
Okay,
When we were
but
with
you'll
them
be able to get a refund if it does. You know, we
Okay.
pay
Right,
you
if we
earlier.
cancel
Yeah,
it,
yeah, you will get a
okay,
refund.
More money for
Yep.
charity.
Yep. So
Yeah, well, we just want to look at the least amount of discomfort. So like some shared use in between as you guys do this and we go, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not just like this day, boom.
Yeah, the one thing I would ask is if we could have advance notice when you're gonna use the gym so that we can post it for the people
Sure.
that, the
Yeah,
members
it would
that
be
go in and play
scheduled. It's always
basketball and
scheduled.
stuff. and-
yep,
yeah,
it'd fall under a
that would be
schedule.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing we've never allowed anyone up to the age of 13. No children were allowed
Unsupervised.
there.
Yep. And we'd agree with that. Yes.
So-
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Well,
We
I
will
think it
have
was
children in recreation
15 they
department
had
that
to
we
have
supervised.
someone
Yes.
with them supervising.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's always supervising because it's a city school partnership. There's a lot of the same kind of rules that you're talking about supervision and alcohol and all those kinds of things are
Well, and we didn't want the kids out on the weight machines. And,
right.
Right.
we have had different ball clubs rent the gym in the spring when it's raining
Yeah.
and stuff. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to use it.
Sure.
It'd be a cool space. I know that there's some underage recreational soccer programs that are always looking for space during the off season for just little kids kicking soccer balls.
I think a couple of years we offered it to Hood to Coast.
Oh, nice.
We had food there they could buy. They had the showers, throw their sleeping bag on the gym floor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So all kinds of ideas.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like you guys are. We're not the evil bad people. We were hoping that wasn't the case. So, and we
No.
appreciate you guys showing up.
Like
today.
I say, there
Yes.
will be disappointment with the members, but
Yep.
life goes on.
All right.
And they've got other options within the community too.
Yes, there is lots of options.
There's a
yeah.
lot more help.
Yep.
Yeah, there
than
real,
there
when we
was.
started that, I don't think there was anything else. Maybe Columbia City, but
Yeah. Yep.
Well, serve the public very effectively, I think.
It has. I
Yes.
think so too.
Yep.
Been a good
Actually,
run.
my wife and kids go down there all the time because we're members, so, yes. Yep.
Nice.
So, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Time to negotiate.
Yes. Okay, update on the waterfront connector plan. Jenny?
Hi.
Hi.
Right. So, as you know, we are working through a TGM grant to plan for what we're calling the Riverfront Connector. And last Tuesday, we had a very long day. We had 2 public meetings, so one at 5, one at 6:30. We met with our advisory committee in the afternoon at 2, and we also had a planning commission work session intermittent through all that. So we had fairly good attendance at those meetings, and that's partly because we actually sent a letter to over 215 property owners along the corridor that we were having the meeting. We also did our normal online promotion with Crystal, and there was a newspaper article. So this room was about half full for both of those meetings, I would say. So during those meetings, they were presented this draft design options presentation, and it kind of goes through the corridor with kind of a menu of streetscape options and intersection improvements. So from this report, they're going to draft an evaluations report where they actually kind of narrow down which of these options are preferred. So just so you know, the consultants took about an hour and a half and almost barely got through this information, so I'm going to try to go really quickly through it. And, you know, I know 3 of you were at those meetings too, so Doug and Keith, I suspect you'll have more questions than maybe Ginny, Susan, or the mayor, because they were at the meetings. So first is just the project area. So as you know, this corridor goes through the southern end of the waterfront to the highway. The study area to the south, the kind of light blue section, is kind of a secondary area, so they didn't go as much detail in that section, so I'll really fly by through those. The really interesting stuff is along Plymouth, down Old Portland Road, and to Gable. So, if you go to the next. So this first segment, Steve mentioned earlier that we are not doing parallel parking on street. That's just not true. We actually designed the segment for this to be include that parallel parking option. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that that's the existing layout, and we're just going to continue that through the South First Street connection. The one difference is that this has sharrows, so shared bike lanes in the travel lanes. This is actually one of the only streetscape options that doesn't have separate facilities for bicycles. And it kind of makes sense. It's the downtown area. You know, traffic is slower anyway. Next slide. So the next segment is the newer riverfront connection. So this is the undeveloped portion of South First Street. It's kind of interesting. We had a conversation like, where does South First actually turn into Plymouth Street? We don't really know at this point. I think it kind of depends on the development at the southern end of the waterfront, how that gets determined. So right now it's just South First Street / Plymouth Street. So the next slide here. So this is pulled straight from the framework plan. It was the recommended streetscape in that plan, and so we just pulled that right into this. It's got parallel parking, separated bike lanes, sidewalks, and a landscape strip. This segment shows bulb outs to make those crossings a little bit shorter for pedestrians. So really no change here.
I had a question, just a quick question.
Yeah.
This particular streetscape is not exclusive or doesn't exclude any type of development.
No, not at all. It
I
has
just
n-
wanted to
yeah.
clarify that because I think that kind of got lost in the discussion.
I would agree. Yeah.
People were hung up on what the buildings were going to be like next to the sidewalk, not realizing that this is what, through months of planning, we decided as a community, not as a city council, as a community, what we wanted our livable streets to look like.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think it's worth noting that so these transportation studies always have to project future uses, and they just looked at the zoning district and what the uses are allowed in that zoning district, and it's a variety of uses. It's not
So, I
any
mean,
one
there
use.
could be a bank, there could be a school, there
Exactly.
could be a daycare, there
All
could
kinds
be a
of
cookie
commercial,
mart.
all kinds of
It could be any of
residential.
those.
Yeah. So this next segment is one of the more challenging segments, and that's for a number of reasons. The first is that there's treatment plant infrastructure that's really costly to remove, and so we kind of have to design the road around that infrastructure. And then there's also huge topographic constraints. There's a lot of basalt outcroppings. And so if you look at the next slide, the two proposed road sections, we utilize both of them, and it's just based on the amount of right-of-way width that's available. So the one flexible thing about this streets, the section, is that the landscape strip varies in width depending on how much is available. Also worth pointing out, on these road sections, the left side is always the north side and the right side is always the south side. So it's always as if you're going towards the river. So the proposed section on this has a multi-use path on the north side and then a shared travel lane on the right side. And that's so that bicyclists go downhill with traffic, so they're not holding up traffic, and then uphill with pedestrians when they're a little bit slower. Again, ideally, you'd have those facilities separate because there is some conflict with pedestrians and bicyclists, but we're just very inhibited by the amount of right-of-way width in this section. So they just kind of did the best they could with what we have.
I have one more question.
Yes.
With traffic being divided from that route in addition to Old Portland Road, as a bicyclist myself, wouldn't it be easier to make bicycle amenities accessible to Old Portland Road corner than that corner? So, like, do you have to, in a plan, can you have preferred bike amenities? This is the bike route through town.
Yeah.
Bike loop, as opposed to directing people out there where everything is so squeezed.
Yeah, and I would argue, as a cyclist in my area, I just cycle on roads where I feel comfortable. So that might just happen naturally that people would choose the routes that are built for them. And in this case, sharing a travel lane going downhill isn't as much of an issue as not having a space at all, especially when there's sharrows. That's a good question.
Yeah, you really fly down the hill.
Yeah, exactly. I go the same speed as a car in that situation. So this is just the short little intersection at 6th Street. It's not very defined, so there's two options here. One is just to put a stop sign and actually mark the street a little bit better. The next option is to just restrict traffic for right in, right out. Option A is probably preferred because we don't like to prohibit certain movements. Both function. So that's that. So here's where things start to get a little bit more interesting. So this is Plymouth Street. There's more topographic challenges because of the basalt. So the two purple segments are major topographic constraints, and then the entire dark green is still topographic challenges. And you'll see that really dark green line in the right-of-way is actually where the road's built, and it kind of curves up into that right-of-way because they're trying to get around that challenge to the south. So again, we're limited on our ability unless you spend lots and lots of money on retaining walls, which just don't make sense. So the first option, this option doesn't fit through the entire right-of-way segment. But it does have separate facilities for sidewalks, only through a portion of it, and then separate bike lane facilities, again, only through a portion of it. So this option's kind of challenging because you have to transition in and out of having those facilities, which isn't ideal for the user. So the preferred option so far is option B, which is the next one. This option is similar to what we decided on Plymouth, which is to have a multi-use path on the north end, travel lanes with the shared bike lane, a sharrow, and then a sidewalk on only a portion of the section. So between 8th and 10th, there's actually room for a sidewalk on that side. For the remainder, there is not. And also in that location, there are actual homes that may use that sidewalk. So that was kind of the preferred option in our advisory committee meeting.
And on Plymouth Street, what's the footage? What's the width right of way?
So the
I thought, for some reason, it's 80 feet in my mind, and you've got a 50-foot development there.
Yeah, you're right. So Plymouth Street's a 80-foot wide right-of-way. It's a collector. But like I said, those topographic challenges don't make for easy construction of using that full 80 width. And so that's why they're narrowing the actual construction width to this. And that's based on the ground, like looking at what's available. So I think it helps to look at an image to see how steep the drop off is in that area. It's just not cost effective to develop the entire right of way.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two for Plymouth. Did you have another question about that?
No.
Okay.
Do I look like I'm confused?
No. I feel like I'm just trying to like whip through this. So, okay. So now we get into the intersection of Plymouth and Old Portland Road. And as you know, this intersection is highly complicated. There's a lot of streets coming onto Old Portland Road. The vision is difficult. It's hard to know where to look. The clearance isn't great. And so option A is kind of the shorter term, cheapest option that tries to get at limiting the number of access points that are entering onto Old Portland Road. So what it does is it takes 14th Street and makes it into a cul-de-sac. And so they direct traffic onto Plymouth Street if you live in that area. And then it kind of reroutes you on the northern end. It again eliminates one of the access points off of 13th Street and redirects towards Plymouth. This option is great for a short-term fix, but it doesn't meet mobility standards when you look at projected growth on the waterfront. So this isn't going to solve our problems, but it's a good short fix. And you'll see that the same fix for the cul-de-sac is used throughout the next options. So option B, they don't show up super well in this presentation, so I'd recommend looking at this on your own if you have comments, but I can kind of describe what's going on. So option B emphasizes Plymouth Street over Old Portland Road. So it actually blocks access along Old Portland. You have to go down Plymouth to get up on Old Portland Road. So that seems crazy now because our waterfront's not redeveloped currently. This is a long-term looking future decision when our waterfront is blossoming and there's a lot going down on the waterfront and you actually want to use Plymouth to get there. So this is a question of timing and when you do this. It also adds a center turn lane to meet projected growth. That's a requirement to have that left-hand turn lane so that you're not blocking oncoming traffic. This option does use the property that we purchased on Old Portland Road. So it turns part of that into a street. And then it also adds some properties back to the tax rolls for development. So it takes what is right-of-way now and adds back to potential red.
Is it possible something like this, and this is not specific to the connector plan, but kind of like how people find the new best route? Is it possible that something like this could happen in a phased process? As people realize it's an easier way to go the way we've built it nice, so then it's not just one day you can't go this way anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's resistance to the way it's always been.
Yeah. I think you're getting at the question of timing.
Right.
Yeah. Like if the waterfront redevelops and we haven't fixed these road connections prior, yeah, exactly. People would start using the roads as they're not meant to be used. Correct. Yeah. So options C and D are both utilize roundabouts. So C puts the emphasis on both routes. What I like about it is that it treats all Plymouth and Old Portland Road equally. And so the timing of it isn't as important because people can go either way. It does impact more properties. So you would be taking properties off the tax rolls and turning them into right-of-way. It does put back some property as well. And then with a roundabout, you get an opportunity for placemaking. You get an opportunity for a gateway or some type of artwork or, something to remind people that they're on their way to the Riverfront District.
I hate roundabouts.
It's interesting because studies show that after a year or 18 months, utilization of roundabouts, it's like accident starts to become accident-free.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it's safer.
Yeah.
But it takes there's a bit of a learning curve in negotiating that for.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember too that it's a difficult intersection. There's not a lot of solutions available, and so this solves it in a way that you don't need a signal. One other thing about this, in the public meetings, it was brought up about truck turning radius. So they actually design roundabouts to have a mountable curb called a truck apron, so that trucks can actually get through and around the roundabout.
They have those in Ridgefield, and I followed them in one of the buses that I drive, and I've followed big dump trucks and highway department trucks, and they do those roundabouts easy peasy and there's full developments and full businesses all the way around them.
Yeah.
They have got it down.
I like easy peasy.
I was amazed because I was like, holy cow, how's it going to work? Because I grew up, I'm used to the more traditional tight edge roundabouts that a 18-wheeler is not going to go around. But the way they have built them now, it's definitely more development friendly.
Yeah. And there were a lot of questions in the meetings too about like, have these property owners been notified yet? And it's just a design option at this point. And so we're very preliminarily discussing this. And yeah, they were actually notified. Everyone was sent a notice. So just something else to note. So option D is in the second roundabout. So again, like all the other ones, it limits that access along 14th and just redirects towards Plymouth. This is centering the roundabout on 13th instead of 12th, which was the previous one. This is like option B that emphasizes Plymouth Street rather than Old Portland Road. So again, the timing is crucial of the waterfront redevelopment of when this would get implemented. This also adds some property back to the tax rolls. And this option was kind of preferred in the advisory committee meeting, but that's subject to the waterfront being developed. So any questions about those? Okay.
Can I back up to
Yeah.
Plymouth Street?
Yeah.
Revisit that skeptical look on my face, I guess,
Yeah, sure.
Is in the design of this, was the approach to not even consider mass transit, not even consider the fact that there needs to be areas, if it's an 80-foot right-of-way, there might need to be some areas for buses to unload and load, school buses to do the same kind of thing. Was there absolutely any talk or any kind of consideration for moving groups of people around rather than just bicycle, pedestrian, automobile?
Sure. So I think we talked about the CC Rider being able to fit down a normal travel lane. So certainly a 12-foot travel lane accommodates buses, and it does now. Are you talking like a separate facility?
Well, no, I'm just thinking that, in a lot of cities will have, a 50-foot, let's say a 50-foot right-of-way, and there's no place for a bus to pull off and
like
let
pull-offs.
people on or off.
Yeah.
Not in loading, unloading, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And if there's 80 feet of right-of-way, there's plenty of room.
Right
In
now,
certain
CC Rider only drops off and picks up in parking lots.
Yeah,
We
in
do
certain
not drop off and
places.
pick up on our street.
Yeah.
So
It's always in a parking lot.
Yeah. Especially with the aging population, that's going to be more of an issue with people not driving.
Well, and even just people with a stroller and a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Not always quick and
Well,
people
it's-
on and off the bus.
as the city grows,
Yeah.
take the city of Eugene, take the city of Salem, take the city of Albany. All of those have mass transit now. And wouldn't it be wise to plan 20 years from now, 15 years from now, that could possibly happen with the Riverfront District and our business core through the city?
Yeah,
that's my input.
It's a
CC
good
Rider
comment.
change their policy? Because I know they have a sign on Milton Way between St. Helens and Columbia Boulevard that's right on the street. It says bus stop.
Which space? I can't remember which space you're talking about.
Well, it's between Columbia Boulevard and St. Helens Street on Milton Way. by where they park the cars for Emirates. There's a sign there that's right on the street that says bus stop.
I've ridden the bus a dozen times in the last year, and I've never seen them pull over to the curb and let anybody off. So I think that is a flex route that you can flex to that stop, but that is not a regular stop.
Is that kind of like a dial around? You have to let them know ahead of time that you're using
the
it.
one thing that is kind of part of this, and maybe it's important to the connector plan or not, I didn't realize until the last week that you could take a bus from Scappoose to Newport. That you can take CC Rider,
They're in
connect
Newport?
and connect and
Yeah.
connect and connect.
It connects to
Oh,
Sunset
to
Transit.
the other transit,
Right, but
yeah.
they all link together. So feasibly, somebody could go to Grandma's house in Newport and get on the bus out here
Yeah.
and not go to Portland at all. And it's like, so, you know, all these small towns like Tillamook and Seaside and Astoria have city buses, and we have CC Rider, and it's like,
Yeah.
this very real possibility as people move away
Sure.
from
And to Doug's
single cars.
point, I think the Riverfront District surely needs a flex stops somewhere on the new development.
So
So we
currently,
haven't-
the only stop in the Riverfront District is in front of the courthouse.
Right.
That's the only place that stops down here.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. Okay, so this is the next part of the primary segment. So from that intersection we just looked at all the way to Highway 30, there's a number of intersections along here that we'll go through. It gets a little hairy around Railroad Ave and Port Ave, so we'll go into those. So option A, this is again the segment from Plymouth all the way down to the intersection of Railroad Ave, Port Ave. So option A is what's currently in our TSP. The problem with this is it doesn't meet standards for bicycle level of stress because the signed speeds are 40 miles an hour and above, and you can't have a bike lane directly next to travel lane with the speeds at 40 miles an hour and comfortably bike. So there's a couple options. You know, you could reduce the speed, but typically in order to justify a reduction in speed, you have to demonstrate that you've tried to do design options that lower speeds first. So that gets into the next option. Option B, there's a trend here, multi-use path on the north end, sidewalk on the south end. So this is separating the bicycles from the roadway and making them feel a little bit less stressed, and we wouldn't have to reduce speeds. This is also nice because it transitions nicely from the previous segment. There's no change. It's just a multi-use path on that side of the road. And then option C. So this is maybe the first time you've ever heard of the term a cycle track. This option shows the bicycles separated from the roadway on a two-way cycle track. So this option, it's got a 12-foot wide cycle track that's sort of elevated from the road, so they're completely separated, and then there's no conflicts between the sidewalks, the pedestrians on the sidewalk and the cyclists. This one does create challenges at intersections because you have to design around that cycle track, and it could be a little bit more complicated. And then also, if you choose a different segment along Plymouth, you have to transition into this cycle track. So you'll see that later segments kind of build on this one, and so kind of whatever you choose kind of should run throughout the entire segment.
So option A, though, was available, but we would want to reduce the speed.
Right, but they argued that you can't simply reduce the speed. You'd also have to have like some kind of design element that actually makes bicyclists feel safer. You can't just reduce
This
the speed.
looks safer to me for bicycles. I've seen it in other states.
I'm just thinking of all the development and the different parcels along the roadway that are industrial, and thinking, God, that could really pose a significant cost of trying to, put an approach, especially if you're on the one side versus the other side.
Can you go back to option B by chance? I have a question. On a multi-use path, I've been on those quite a bit with my bike, and it seems to me like there was striping on it, and the striping segregated the bicycle from the pedestrians.
Yeah, I can't remember talking about striping on the multi-use path, but it would seem to me you'd want to have some sort of separation from the pedestrians and the bicyclists.
I think I'm trying to, it's round out on the airport somewhere, And it might be on Marine Drive in certain places.
And remember too, it's 12 feet, which is, you know, it's not huge, but it's definitely better than the old Portland Road multi-use path, which is incredibly narrow. So your
Thank
question
you.
is striping. That's a good
Thanks
one.
for revisiting that.
On the 10 Portland Road really isn't clear by, that it's designated for both bicycles and pedestrians.
Yeah.
It's not marked.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. So now this is the section between Railroad Ave. So basically the stretch of Gable Road. So where Old Portland Road transitions to Gable Road. So the biggest difference is that option A, B, and C just have a median in the center. So it's the same exact options, but there's a either a turn lane or a planted median throughout the strip. So this is the existing TSP. This is the one with the multi-use path. And then this is the one with the cycle track. So like I said, whatever we select, we'll just kind of run through all of the segments. So this is the intersection of Castor Road and 18th Street. Right now there's an old outdated signal there. So option A is to just bring that up to signal, current signal. And option B is to put another roundabout there. Again, you know, we have industrial uses to the south, so truck turn radiuses are incorporated into this design, and you wouldn't have to have a signal. It does kind of eat into the green space a little bit. Thankfully, we own that. So option A, this is down by, so the southern entrance there is Old Portland Road transitioning onto Gable, and then you've got Railroad Ave there. So this intersection is challenging because you've got the railroad crossing and you've got two really close streets coming on to a very busy street. So this is the cheapest alternative. It's the closest to what we have now. To bring this to meet mobility standards, you need a left-hand turn lane in the center. Which means that we need an additional lane over the tracks. Our consultant said that can be really challenging to get permitted through ODOT Rail. But this does meet mobility standards if you have that center turn lane. So
that track at this time, at current time, is not in use.
Oh, there's trains on
I've
there.
seen trains on it.
I have actually been stopped by train there.
Not often, but they do switching there.
For Armstrong.
They do switching.
It's for Armstrong. Yeah, you're right.
Well, Armstrong's going
Close.
away.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it,
I mean,
will,
it's
it will be diminished, but that is dependent on what happens
What
to
the
the
next
future of
use is.
Armstrong. Because it's not going to
exactly.
remain vacant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of out of our control too.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So option B here, this is a realignment of Railroad Ave to be at the same cross of Port Ave, which is great because we can reduce the intersection to just one. So there's option B and C. One is signalized and one is just stop controlled. The signalized one, you don't need that additional center turn lane. The one where it's signaled, you can just have 2 lanes, which is great. You don't have to widen it. Obviously, we need new right-of-way there to realign it. But previous transportation studies, this was the suggestion, and so it's just coming up with options to make that happen. So there's B, and then C. That's the center turn lane one, where you actually have to widen Old Portland Road to make it work. Any questions about that? Okay. You're good. Thanks, Kathy. So option A, this is the intersection of Old Portland Road onto Gable again. So this alignment signalizes it further to the south, and that reduces that issue with the queuing of traffic behind the tracks there. This is a longer term option because it obviously emphasizes Old Portland Road as the main entrance and not Gable, which is not currently the case. So this is a really, looking far out into the future. This is more like.
I really like that one because
Yeah.
of what Millard Road's going to happen
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah, it's a really good solution. Option B, this is kind of what it is currently, but it moves it away from the tracks a little bit so that you don't have such a cluster of all of the different access points going on to Gable and Old Portland. There's no signal here, but you do need the continuous left-hand turn down the center. This is the cheapest option. Moving on. So there's just a minor intersection improvement here where we need the left-hand turn lane because of the projected increase in traffic along Millard Road with the new signal down there. McNulty is expected to, attract more traffic away from the Gable Road intersection, which is great. So they recommend a left-hand turn lane to get people on there without stopping traffic. So Gable Road, we have to address this intersection. It's part of the scope, but there's a long wall of text here, but the short is it's a really difficult intersection. There's no easy solution. The TSP recommended having a right-hand turn lane from the westbound approach, so this is just reiterating that. This long text also talks about maybe having alternative mobility standards because this intersection will likely not meet mobility standards in the future, and so kind of moving the bar is something that we're talking about with our consultants.
That intersection has been redesigned how many times?
Well, I think the original engineering on that whole thing was just really messed up.
Mm-hmm. But the fix wasn't any better.
Yeah.
And we're on like a third or fourth.
Yeah, the railroad crossings, a bump out on that, especially when you're coming down on Portland. I just don't get why they couldn't have held those arms back further. They had the chance before Walmart. I know.
When it was initially designed, the trucks couldn't even turn. There wasn't enough room
Yeah,
to turn.
turn them off. Kept turning the arms off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's drawn here is what's existing except for that right-hand turn lane onto the highway. So that's the one suggested change that we can fairly easily accomplish, but it's easy as, you're still dealing with the railroad. So then secondary segment, I'm going to fly through these. This is just anything south of Gable and onto the highway. So we have Millard Road, McNulty Way, and Old Portland Road. So the next slide. So here's the proposed Old Portland Road segment. Our TSP recommended a multi-use path down Old Portland Road. This just continues that. This is the road section for McNulty. It's the same as our TSP collector, which is what McNulty is. And then this is for Millard. You'll notice they're the same. It's the same road section. So no changes from our TSP on these ones. There's existing conditions on McNulty Way. It's semi-built out with bike lanes, sidewalks, and landscaping. This is a truck radius turn fix. The county roads department also expressed an interest in realigning Millard Road with Old Portland Road at a T intersection at the same time that US 30 and Millard Road intersection gets upgraded. So hopefully that happens. But this is just something in the meantime. It's addressing a truck turning problem on that corner.
We got to address the county too. I have citizens request that they would like them to continue or do all of Old Portland Road when they do that little section.
Yeah, that would be great. And so this is the last one. This is the intersection of Millard and US 30. This is the proposed plan for ODOT to signalize it. The long narrative there is talking about the same problems that the Gable Road intersection has, which is that with projected growth, this intersection is still not projected to meet mobility standards, even with the signalization. So there's not an easy solution other than changing the goal you're trying to hit with that. So there's conversations between our consultants and ODOT about that and what that means for us. So moving on, the next time you'll hear from either Jacob or I will be in September or in October with another council update. In September, we're going to have another series of public meetings, planning work session, and then we'll come back to you just like we did this time. Next time, we'll have the evaluation report that narrows these down into preferred options. They'll also incorporate some cost estimate estimates, so we're not just doing this blind, but so we can actually have an understanding of what those roundabouts may cost. Any questions?
Well, I'd like to see one of the values of really looking ahead and trying to project, as long as you're doing this in transportation, we don't want to do it for like right now. We want to do it for 20 years from now or 40 years from now, and think about all the kinds of issues that might come up at those times, and see if they can be addressed, especially with width of street, those kinds of concerns. So that's my only concern over the entire broad kind of program that we're doing. Make certain that we take into account just not the fix for now.
Yeah, this is projecting growth out to 2031, which matches our TSP. So, yeah, that's a good point. Anything else?
Hey.
All right.
Thank you. Discussion regarding
Thank you.
parking at the end of Strand Street.
I guess
Sue.
that's me. So at the last council meeting and at previous meetings, there's been some discussion about, is there a way to add some temporary parking spaces because of some of the complaints from a few of the business owners in the area regarding cars that are taking up potential parking spaces that their customers could use, et cetera, et cetera. So we looked at a whole bunch of different options previously, and the one that we had determined that we will be implementing was adding some additional, well, we didn't add, but marking some additional spots for limited time directly in front of the businesses that are on Strand and Cowlitz. So those are all now marked for limited time. When we start painting parking stalls, we will also be marking, actually delineating specific parking spaces on South First Street from Cowlitz down to the end of the street.
'Cause you'll
so
have
that
more, right?
Yes, so we'll be more orderly parking in the same configuration as it currently is. So you've got pull-in parking on one side and parallel parking on the other side. That's the only thing that the current width of the street will accommodate. So in addition to that, it was asked that we just look into providing some sort of a temporary gravel parking space. This is just an extremely rough little sketch of an area where we would be able to accommodate two-way parking with access off the end of Strand only, pedestrian access onto the Veneer property, pedestrian access to the right-of-way that connects over to the end of South First Street. So there would be able to have pedestrian access there, but not vehicle access. Looking at roughly, this area would be about 65 feet wide by 160 feet long. And to produce this, just with gravel surfacing, just with those big ecology blocks to delineate the area, not putting up fencing all the way around, we would have to install a new gate at the end. But we're looking at anywhere from $18,000 to $23,000. It's not super cheap. Even though it sounds like it would be an easy thing to do, there's a lot of vegetation there that would have to be removed. And of course, you'd have to pick up all of the ecology blocks to install. We'd also more than likely have to, even though we are advocating that this does not stay open as a 24-hour parking area, if it was to be approved and move forward, that it would just be a day-only type of parking area. There would still need to be lighting in there to help with crime prevention. So you would have to install some lighting, and that's where some of the cost, that window would, how much lighting, and I talked to the PUD, and they weren't exactly sure, well, we could maybe do this kind of a pole or that. So there was a cost variance there as a low estimate, high estimate. And they said it could actually go a little bit higher than what their high estimate was, depending on how many poles and what type of fixtures they would need to go in there. If we were to do about this size, you'd get at the maximum 26 vehicles in there. So you're looking at about $850, $900 per parking spot for a temporary parking area that would be eliminated as soon as the street started to be extended through the veneer property there when development starts to happen.
I'm thinking about Tina's comments earlier and wondering
Correct.
if we don't need to really define the need first. Maybe
Correct.
we need to look at other options first.
Absolutely correct. And that was another thought that we had amongst staff was maybe we could do a very informal survey as every time we go down that location, look in that area, come to work, leave work, walk down there, go around on lunch, look and see how many parking spaces are open each time at different times of the day. And do that over a period of time and see, is this really something that is essentially needed? And then
Well, and the
go
idea
ahead.
that business owners are allowing their employees to park in front
Correct.
of other businesses is
Correct.
a problem.
Correct. And there's many other locations where people can park if
think we
within a
can
block's
designate
walk
other parking.
if they're working at those facilities. And that was one of the reasons why on the last time we talked about the parking issue that the spaces marked on South First, I believe right now there's signage up that indicates that's 2-hour parking or a limited time parking, but we were advocating for removing that from that block on the east side of South First, past between Cowlitz and the end of the street there, so that employees would be able to park without having to move their car every 2 hours or something along those lines, so that there would be other places that they could park besides just the parking lot
I
across the
think I'd
street.
like to pursue looking at that further.
Okay.
And in your staff meeting, did you, was it covered about the two automobiles that have been there for quite some time, but the one that's been there since Thanksgiving, taking up a parking spot?
Right. Yeah. We don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, but that
I
would
brought
be
it up
surprised.
last meeting.
Correct. You did absolutely. You brought it up, but none of us have any. This was secondhand to you. None of us have any actual hard. But I wouldn't be surprised that that's the case. So that would be an issue potentially. That's something that would be discussed with the police department as far as. I don't believe, though, that our code has any time limitations for having a vehicle in. Yeah, and that's next on the agenda.
Which we discussed.
That was the nature of the request to have the staff look at an ordinance.
That was correct. And when we looked at that issue as a separate issue from this parking availability of parking issue, it appears that if the council wanted to move forward with some sort of restrictions on leaving a vehicle on a city right-of-way for a long amount of time, it would be fairly simple to change the ordinance on the one that restricts RVs and boats and things like that in the right-of-way for a certain amount of time, that you could add that to your, for it to be just any vehicle. The only issue that I could see with that would be, say you have a resident in a downtown area that has no other place to park, and they park there and they're on vacation. We're going to Hawaii for 2 weeks. Where do they park their car?
Permit.
Come in and talk to us.
Permit.
Yeah, permit.
Well, that would be something else that would have to, how would permits be issued? Would there be a cost to them? Would there?
Right. That's what we're asking for.
Okay.
That's what we're asking the staff to research is how could that work? Because there is a problem down there.
To happen.
And I agree. We don't need this. I agree. I went down and I heard it. I got my ears. I mean, they were full. And get that parking thing going. We don't need it if there's proper signage and there's a proper way to do this. And I think that cars that have been parked there since Thanksgiving is unacceptable.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
That's what they have storage lots for.
So I don't think $24,000 is worth it for a couple of years or maybe 18 months of until they start going. But
Right.
I do appreciate the study. I appreciate the price. I think we owe that to not only me, but the council and our citizenry. But what I do think is by proper signage and good enforcement, which I know we have, and then the proper ordinances and how we can get around this. And I think you brought it up, or in our conversation, it came up with permitting, and I think that's a good solution to this. It's bound to happen. I mean, if someone wants to permit their RV there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, as long as we know that, I think, as long as the city knows that, I think we're way ahead of the game.
I think we have other cities to look at that already do that.
Yes, that would be the first place to start. Yeah.
I wasn't here with the conversation last meeting. There are lots of places in our community that have parking issues, and I think that this enforcement is key and signage is key. There's a lot of businesses up on Columbia Boulevard that say there's never a parking space in front of their business, and we're not going to spend $20,000 to build them a parking lot.
Right.
So it sets bad precedent for other people, and
Right.
just having a consistent policy and a consistent enforcement for all of our small businesses.
Very good point.
Agree.
Best
Absolutely.
idea.
I look
Very
up at
good
the Holton
point.
district and I look at what they did behind El Tapatio did and what Mary Kiblin had done. And they put a nice parking lot back there, and there is available parking back there, but it's of course their businesses, but they really addressed that issue up there, and there is public parking behind Richardson's and the Pastime Tavern. So there is parking up there, just people want the front spots. That's the bottom line. Everybody wants to roll
Right in
up
front of the business.
Absolutely.
and hop out.
Yeah. I want to get out of my car right in front of where I'm shopping. Absolutely.
So, I mean, we have a big parking lot over here. We also have a 80-foot right-of-way that could be expanded behind the building. I think we own that lot behind the,
Oh, you're saying on the opposite side
Yeah.
of the
yeah.
Yeah.
But we have a huge parking lot that's hardly ever full.
hardly ever full.
Yes. I mean, events are just events. It fills up clear up to 6th Street. Wait till 4th of July comes. It's going to be filled clear up to 6th Street.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for the information, though. Now we have real numbers.
We really
That's helpful.
appreciate your study and your
Sure.
report. Thank you.
I appreciate Public Works input on that because they went and looked at that. And
Did we have a little bit of
Figured out what they
discussion
needed.
on parking time limits then too, there? Or is it-
We did last time.
no, it's on my agenda. So did we
Yeah, I
kind of cover that?
That's
No.
where we're going, and hopefully the staff can give us some recommendations on that.
Okay, so
Parking
work on
and
that.
permitting.
let's get introduced here. The introduction of our new municipal court judge, Amy Lindgren.
Amy's not here.
Amy's not going to be here. She's going to try and make it to the evening meeting, but I did invite Sam Erskine to come introduce himself. He, along with Amy, their contracts are on the agendas for tonight approval, so I wanted to invite Sam to come in, introduce himself, ask any, or you can ask him any questions or
Any questions?
anything under the blue sun. So, Sam, if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself and
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah.
I'm Sam Erskine. I'm the apparently soon-to-be new municipal court prosecutor, criminal defense attorney working out of Portland currently. Prior to that, I was an administrative law judge, and then prior to that, I worked in the Multnomah County Circuit Court as a clerk for several years.
Okay.
So,
Well, welcome.
thank you.
Yep.
Nice to see all your faces.
The only question I got for you are ducks or beavers?
Ducks. I'm a duck. I'm not just saying that.
And so when do you start?
I don't think that we've hammered out the exact start date yet, but I'm kind of flexible. I'm trying to taper off the cases that I have active right now so that I can be a little bit more flexible in my schedule. So.
This,
Do you have any questions for us?
and that's what I was going to say. Just so you know, a little history is we've had some issues with our courts. I'm sure Matt filled you in the interview process. You were probably well informed. I'm sure of that, right? And we look forward to you helping us try to right the ship and welcome you. Like Doug asked, if you have any questions of us, feel free.
Yeah, so I actually had a suggestion from someone, which I don't know if this was part of the practice with prior prosecutors, but if it would be helpful or useful to the council to have some kind of periodic reporting from the prosecutor's office.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought that might be a good way to start off on a good foot with everybody and make sure that I'm in communication with you about what your goals and expectations are for the municipal court, and I can let you know any difficulties that I'm having carrying those.
Absolutely.
What do you see as the most effective timeline? You think maybe like once a month or once every other month or once a quarter, or how do you see it?
I mean, I had just started kind of from essentially nothing and thinking once a quarter, but if you wanted more frequent updates or something like that,
good.
I'd be happy to do that too. So
good. So noted.
I like that. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I don't. It sounds like I'm getting the impression that was not part of the practice for prior prosecutors.
Not consistently.
No. No.
We want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
We just want to be informed.
Yeah.
More of a team.
Yeah, and I want to be a part of helping right the ship and making it something that you guys are proud of, and something that represents the city well and does everything that you want it to do.
Great.
Super.
All right, Sam. Well, we'll try to come over there and catch you when you start and take you out to lunch or something.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. So thank you.
All right.
He's going to take us out to lunch. What are you talking about?
Thank you all. Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Yep.
Welcome.
Okay. Department reports. Perry.
Well, hats off to whoever sabotaged the chairs over here, because if the intent was to get us to sit up and pay attention, it's worked for Margaret and I, because we've had our elbows on the table the whole time over here. Eyes wide open. Tonight, we have 2 of our new reserve officers that'll be sworn in, and we look forward to getting them aboard. And anyway, that's going to happen tonight. That's all I have.
All right. Sue?
Not a whole lot going on, but we do have probably in the next couple of weeks in our budget. We've last year started putting in a certain amount of money to do annual dock maintenance, so that we don't get into a situation like we had over the last couple of years, where we have a major failure of part of the infrastructure over there and have to go through that whole process. So we do have a contractor that's ready to come in. It's just a really small project, but they're going to be replacing some of those rods. And if you noticed, a couple of the dock branches are listing a little bit, so they're going to go under and straighten up some of those floats and get everything, all perked up again. And we hope to keep doing that every year so that we don't get into a failure situation again. So they should be out here. That's about all I have.
Nice. Neil?
Just going to mention that we've got most all of our summer help aboard now, and so that's good. We did have a lot of trouble getting help this year, so that's kind of strange. But we were one short, so we even have a full crew.
Okay.
That's all I have. Go Beavs today.
Margaret?
Finished.
Our summer library challenge, sometimes referred to as summer reading, kicked off on Monday. In the last 2 days, we've had 261 people come in to sign up. That's a pretty brisk pace. But last year, we probably had just under 700 people register. So that represents a good portion in just 2 days of what we expect. That's adults as well as children. But the children's involvement is the lion's portion of our program. I have a youth calendar of events that I will pass around a little bit later, but I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the things that are happening. There's a real nice mix of things. Gretchen is continuing her series, which she calls a Make It series, and it has everything from hands-on projects to Legos and magic tricks and catapults and all those fun things. We also have a kickoff party this Saturday that's going to feature a performer called Red Yarn, and he'll do stories and music and puppets. And Gretchen was able to get a Cultural Coalition grant to pay for that. So we're very appreciative of the Columbia County Cultural Coalition for sponsoring that program. We also have the the Museum of Natural and Cultural History coming up from Eugene to do a geology program. And the last feature I guess I want to mention is that for several years now, I think this is probably the third year, Gretchen goes into the summer meals program that's at Lewis and Clark 1 day a week and presents a program. So it's a great way for us to connect families that are at the summer meals program with the library. And so, and I will say that they've really appreciate having us as a partner. So that's developed nicely. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Margaret. Matt.
I do have a few things for you. One thing that I do want to mention, Chris Iverson talked about it briefly, was a potential increase in the crime coverage. We currently have about $200,000 of liability on our crime coverage, and that covers things like theft, financial crimes, something like what happened at the sheriff's office. So the auditors came in a couple weeks ago. They do a pre-visit, usually around June, and then they come back and finish up their audit around September, October. They gave a suggestion to the city to increase their rates from $200,000 to $500,000. The additional cost for us is about $1,048. So about $1,000 gets us $300,000 more in coverage as a liability. For me personally, I don't mind that. I think it protects the city. We have a lot of checks and balances along the way in many of the things that we do, and we usually go over what the auditors require or look for. But just as a safety net, I think $1,000 extra is well worth $300,000 more in protection in case anything was to happen that we couldn't foresee as of right now. So that is something that I would like to recommend, but as a council at $200,000, I could say you're probably safe, but things do happen. So this is just more of, it's basically like it is. It's insurance and you pay for the protection. So just like the council to think about that and just let me know, what your feelings are about that. The other thing I wanted to hand out to you to review, you have seen something similar to this before. I handed out kind of a tax story, so to speak, on a couple pages. This is meant to be a public document that will be published and to help inform the citizens of St. Helens about what their property taxes go towards, what it pays for, what it doesn't. One of the comments from Councillor Locke when you first reviewed this was that there was no comparison with other cities and what their rates are. So that comparison chart is added on the back. You can see St. Helens is marked in the red with other cities around the county and area, to at least hopefully give some of the citizens an idea of what their property tax rate is compared to other cities. So if you have some time, please review this. Crystal has reviewed it and looked it over, but we'd obviously like your comments and feedback if there's anything that you think should be added or changed. I'm trying to keep it to one page. There's a lot of information that isn't covered, but I think this goes over at least a starting point of at least trying to be as transparent as we can about what property taxes go towards for the citizens. The other thing I wanted to mention was the FARA building visit. We had a couple councilor members, myself, John, Neil, and Roger from Public Works look over that building when we gave the tour. When speaking with Roger briefly, a rough estimate, there's some improvements that are needed on the flat part of the roof, not over the gym. There are obviously improvements from you saw probably briefly in the pictures that need to be done. We estimated roughly, and this is probably a little bit high, of about $50,000 in repair work. That includes the roof, of things that could be done just to get it back up to probably where it needs to be for a public use facility that we intend to use it for. So where that money comes from possibly is the $500,000 that was a reinvestment in parks. The staff and Doug are currently meeting to review some of those CIP projects and estimates of what that is about to cost over the next few years. Right now, those estimates are looking at about $400,000, using as well as about 150 of Parks SDC funds for some of those projects. So as a possibility, you could use that remaining $100,000, a portion of that, for the fair building if you chose to. That is one opportunity, one option that the city could look at. The other would be to phase in the improvements as needed. Obviously, there are grant opportunities. I've already spoken with Ginny about looking at the Ford family and seeing if there are funds available,
That'd be a good one.
because it is intended to be used for a community center recreation facility. So we'll definitely, probably that will be our first choice of looking at grants. So
Yeah, I like that.
But I'm confused at this point, as many other people are, I think, is where is this recreation? What department does it fit under? Is it really under parks?
no, it is not. We're trying very hard, at least in these initial steps, because this is a new program, a new idea for the city of St. Helens right now. We've tried very hard to separate as much as we can some of the infrastructure needs as far as staffing, as far as what the parks staff look at and do and maintain, and then what the recreation side of that.
Well,
So formally, we're looking at the recreation program falling under the administration department.
That was the answer I was hunting for. And the reason I'm hunting for that, the reason I wanted to get to that, is then why are we looking at taking money from parks to fund the recreation? Now, that doesn't make sense. Why?
The reason I say it is because it is available money that was already budgeted and funded for over the next few years. When you decided we'll decide tonight as a council when you approve the budget, that $500,000 is generally the city's overall money. And you're basically saying that this $500,000 we're going to take out of this $3 million side investment, and we're going to throw it all towards parks.
That was my understanding.
That was the understanding.
Because that was my understanding from 2 months ago.
Correct. The reason it was $500,000 was because I went through the master plan and added up what projects were currently in the master plan.
Okay.
After reviewing it with staff, going through what projects have already been completed or don't need to be completed or should be pushed off into the far future, that number dropped from $500,000 to about $400,000. So there's availability of $100,000 that could still be spent on parks. There are obviously still projects that could be completed, but that is, as a possibility, a source to do some of those renovations if the council decided to.
Well, okay, so it's going to be under the jurisdiction of administration. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. So, question, the Ford Foundation grants, are they typically matching grants? Just
They
curious.
typically are. When I talked to Jenny about one of the grants she specifically thought of for this particular case, it would be a matching grant. So that cost can be time and material or time that Roger has spent or Public Works staff spends on doing some of those improvements. It may also be a smaller portion between Roger's time and a little bit of capital from the city to match what we're getting from the Ford family. So maybe it's, if you think of it as 25 and 25, maybe 15 or so of that is Roger's time and 10 of that is actually what the actual cost is.
Well, I think it definitely meets the criteria for reaching out to the Ford Foundation.
Yes, I think it does too, and that will definitely, grant funding will definitely be our first choice in what we're trying to do. As soon as the budget is approved and, like I said, you kind of make the final decision on using the Fair building, then we can start to move forward on getting better estimates for anything that needs to be done, and then start working with Jenny on writing that grant for the Ford family.
Well, and you know the nature of my question. It isn't about you deciding this or deciding that. It's that this council was all in terms of trying to fund parks, all the way from the sugar tax to this, to that, and whatever. So we get down to the nitty gritty.
I was not involved in the sugar tax.
I wasn't.
Now we get down to the nitty gritty of $500,000, and then all of a sudden the $100,000 disappears out of parks that I was anticipating going to parks. Now it's going somewhere else. It's going to administration. But that's okay. That's your decision. I'm just telling my fellow council people that we were all in on trying to fund parks at one time. We're all in a circle, in a huddle, saying, yes, let's do it. Now it comes down to push. It's right where the rubber meets the road. It's not happening.
So, Doug,
it's just a fact of trying to make of ways and means of how to best move the city along. And I agree with you 100%. And I am still on board with parks. I always have been, always will be. I think we are, like Carmen had said, we are definitely parks rich, and they need a little bit of attention. And I think we all agree on that. It's just ways and means of trying to make
correct.
things work.
And I do want to clarify, I'm not making that decision.
I know that.
And what I was throwing out was different options that we could look to find that $50,000. So grant funding will obviously be our first choice. But if we do get denied of that and we start to move forward with doing renovations, we have to find the money somewhere. So I'm just giving you those options now that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
When we get down that road, if we don't get the grant funding, then we may have more discussions of where does that money come from and do you want to spend it?
And these are all ways of benefiting our community and enhancing our community, whether it's parks, whether it's recreation.
No, this was about an agreement that the council had. I understand that. This is an agreement that we were all together on, I thought. That's what this is about. That's why I'm raising the question. And I know that it's going to be a huge benefit to our community.
There is one more thing, if we're okay with moving on for right now, that I do want to talk about with you, and I'm going to hand out a small little packet. Yesterday, myself and Sue received an email from the PUD about the LED rates that will be effective on July 1st. The new LED rates increase the current rates roughly about 72%. So it's a little steep.
I'm figuring that out.
Over the new rates, yeah. Or so you have the old style, what you used to be paying for, then we changed out to the LEDs, and so you got that rate for this current year that we're in. So now we're looking at next year what the new rate of the new rate will be. So that estimate came through and kind of blew our mind a little bit. I wanted to go back and at least remind the council of what you saw when you were given the presentation from Amerisco, what the savings were that they predicted based on their calculations and their rate analysis. So I'm going to briefly go through a few pages, and then the last page, if my taping skills are up to par, should fold out nicely, because I didn't want to fit all of this information on one page. I get enough flack for that. So you have about a little under 1,000 lights that were inventoried and audited. The second page kind of gives you a brief overview of the life expectancy of the standard HBS fixture versus an LED fixture. The third page is a rough estimated yearly savings. that was shown to you from Amoresco, and these estimates are fairly accurate. Your current costs for the last 3 years were right around $70,000 for streetlights, and this year it's going to be right around $23,000. So that is a pretty significant savings with surrounding issues of about $50,000. So the annual savings from the usage is pretty right on par, if not greater than what was anticipated. The pages to really focus on are probably the last two, which shows the projected cash flow from Ameresco. And the main line to kind of focus on is the very bottom one, which is the cumulative net annual cash flow with the financing. To do all of these LED improvements, the city had and chose to take out a debt of about $750,000. That is paid over the next 10 years at $60,000 a year. So roughly with interest and everything, that 10-year loan is going to cost about $900,000. So just keep that number in mind. When Amoresco did the cash flow analysis, they assumed a biannual increase, which is standard for BPA, of anywhere from about 4.5 to 5.5%. That's usually standard for BPA. They increase their rates every 2 years. So with those rate increases, with the assumed debt payments that are $60,000 per year, you end up, when you're paying back the loan, you essentially lose money. You're losing, as the in 2017 graph shows, Ameresco estimated you would lose about $11,000, and that's because you're paying off the debt. The idea is that when the debt pays off, that's when you're really going to see those savings over the course of the few years for those lower rates with the LED maintenance. The fold-out that I attached on the upper left is the chart that the PUD office emailed Sue and I with the new rates. So if you look at the column that says current RS60 cost and light of 86 cents, the new rate, if you go over just a few columns, that rate goes from 86 cents to $2. Similarly, rates that are like $4.94, which is the bottom of the LED, those go up to about $7.68. The very bottom of that line where it says total $19.28, that is roughly the monthly cost of what our LEDs cost on for a bill. That $1,900 will go up to about $3,230 by their estimates. So over a course of a year, that's about a $17,000 or so increase. From where we're spending $23,000, it goes up to $40,000. Okay. So there are two long graphs on the very bottom. I want you to focus on the very bottom one first, the longer one. This is assuming a couple things that were shown to you when Ameresco came and gave their presentation. It assumes that the $23,000 that we paid this year will go up 5% every 2 years. We continue to make the debt payments, which is 10 years. And so you see all those negative lines at the bottom for the total, and that's showing your negative cash flow analysis because you're paying off the debt. In 2033, when the debt is paid off, you see it jumps up to a positive about $36,000. So that means that's your savings that you're starting to realize now that the debt is paid off. And that's because your rate for the LEDs is obviously still lower than what you were paying before. So this long graph kind of shows by the time the rates actually get back up to where they were before, when you were paying $70,000 a year. So how long does it take for those LED rates to slowly creep up with those 5% increases? It actually takes till about 2063. And that's when the cost actually gets to what you were paying before. So the highlighted row of all those positive cash flows ends up being about $630,000. That means that's your savings, technically, that you did from doing your LED project. The one above is what we're currently now estimating. So when that $23,000 cost goes up to $40,000, you're still making the debt payments for the next 10 years. That you can see the highlighted bar is a lot smaller, and that savings is about $80,000. It's a big difference between saving $630,000 versus $80,000. So where do we go from here? We have reached out to Tim from McNulty, who was the person who emailed us the new rate structure. I'm sorry, yes, from PUD. So we chatted for probably about 30 minutes or so this morning. And we talked about the cost of service analysis that they've done last year and a couple years before, which I did attend the final kind of reveal and result of those analysis studies. And during those cost of service analysis studies, it was never discussed during those meetings that they were going to focus on this specific LED class. It's also worth noting that this increase that was approved by the board in May never went through the rate advisory board. It was just kind of put onto the board and onto the table and passed and moved on. So I've asked him to reach out to the general manager, who is not there today. He is back in the office tomorrow, supposedly, to see if we could set up a meeting to discuss what the impact of this rate increase does for us as a city. For one standpoint, budgeting, because we budgeted $20,000 or so this next year for lighting, and when that goes up to 40, then we have to take that money from somewhere else. So we're waiting to hear back from the general manager. My hope is that he will be open to meeting and discussing possible ways to work this rate structure in. I talked to Tim briefly about stepping the rate increase. Obviously, I do understand the cost of service analysis. I understand where they're coming from and what the rates they need to get. However, I disagree with the process of getting there. So we're hoping to have a discussion very soon, and we will let the council know what the results of that discussion are, and may even invite a couple of you to come join in on that conversation. What I'm hoping is that we can step this increase up over the next few years. I may revisit the debt service payments that we are doing and the amount of debt service, and look at the cash flow of the street fund if the city wanted to possibly pay down some of the debt ahead of time to help that cash flow analysis. That's up to the city council and staff to kind of give you the recommendation of what we think is best for you to make the most informed decision. So I anticipate doing that analysis and trying to figure out how we can kind of work with the PUD and get this figured out.
I think the bottom line, if you don't get a bit of what you're asking for, that we have been members of the OJUA, and the Oregon Joint Use Utilities Association, and they resolve disputes just like this without attorneys, without anything, and with good representation on both sides. They get a committee that gets together and can, if you get pushed in a corner,
yeah, and
you don't get what you want, there's always a OJUA, and I think the membership is like $550, something like that. In the past, it's been that's been the membership. They are a member. It would mean that we'd have to be a member, and then we could utilize the conflict resolution committee to resolve it.
Well, well, we're not saying not because of increased rates, but there was no public process. It was an increase by our numbers of 73%. That was just made a decision on May 15th. I wasn't notified. Anybody else notified?
Oh man, if I
No,
was sitting on that,
I would imagine if we were to increase water rates somewhere of 72%, we might want to hold a public forum and call people.
Well, I'll just quit right now if you do that.
I'm not anticipating that. I want the record to show.
On it, we're both public entities.
Correct.
It just seems to me that they breached policy.
Yeah, to me it seemed they stepped over that public process of letting us know and then giving us even an opportunity to testify and talk to their board and manager about
Well,
how we can do
you were just emailed this 2 days ago, right? So they are in contact, so that's a good sign.
Yep.
We'll make it happen.
Yep. So we'll keep the council informed on what that process is. That's the end of my report.
Sue?
Okay. I was just going to add that I've reached out to Amorisco, our consultant on this project, and well, one of the emails we got back is we are appalled by these rates, and that they want to set up a meeting with the people at PUD as well, some of the management.
Really, the long and short of it is we went $60,000 in debt to go to LEDs, and now
you at $900.
And now it's a new. How much?
600.
Well, 750,000.
Yeah.
With interest, you're going to end up paying 900,000.
So, and to go to LEDs, and now it's a new classification announced to us, and it was decided through the email process. What I read,
without any of our input,
Yep.
without
Yes.
and then one of the other things that they had indicated was that they had anticipated, just as Matt said, that there would be an increase of about 5.1%. Certainly nothing around 72%.
Yeah, because the 5% still checked out. They all look good. Everything.
Yeah, and from the records that they could find, one of the things that they cited was increased BPA rates, and the increased BPA rate that they could find was about a 5.4% increase.
Yeah, not 73. Okay. Anything else, Matt? Okay. Kathy? No? Tina? I'm going to ask you to make it quick. Okay. I'm just going to read the agenda for 4th of July. Oh, perfect. Yep.
Tina Curry Consulting. I just wanted to go over what we're doing for the 4th of July. This year, we're going to be doing the same tailgating and parking at the waterfront, and people can get tickets for that at discovercolumbiacounty.com. Anyone inside the fenced area at the riverfront will be required to wear a wristband.
How much is that for tailgating?
It's $20 for a carload.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can buy individual passes if you just want to walk in too.
Okay.
Yeah, and there will be additional officers in that area because they don't have to monitor Sand Island the way they thought they were going to have to. The trash can painting commences in the morning. We have music in the morning by DJ starting at 10 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, we have face painting. We have activities that I am adding to the schedule from the recreation department. At 2 o'clock, we have the bell ringing with Judy Thompson and Steve Topaz. People should come and visit with the American Legion and VFW in the Columbia View Park. They also are giving people free cake, so come and have a free slice of cake.
Down in the Columbia
In the
View,
Columbia View
not in
Park.
the plaza.
Correct.
They've-
Yeah, because then they're part of the whole thing more, I think. And then at 3 to 5, we have the Wen Alexander Band. At 4 p.m., we do the flag raising, and the anthem is being sung by Christina Sullivan. She has a great voice, by the way. Yeah, incredible. For that song, at least, I've heard it. Yeah, really good. And then 5 to 6:30, we have happy hour music with Matt Brown, and the beer garden opens. At 8 o'clock, we have Hit Machine on the Wanna Credit Union stage, and at 10 o'clock, the fireworks celebration begins. So we're going to follow the same format as 13 Nights so that people can come into the park anytime they want. They can't bring open liquor in a cooler or anything like that. And I think that in general, the new format for 13 Nights is being well received because people can join the audience and not be sequestered into one area if they want to have a beer.
What's the rules, Tina, on the tailgating? Are they going to be allowed to spend the night?
They cannot stay overnight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of issues with that last year.
Yeah, they're not staying
They
overnight.
couldn't find a designated driver around.
Yeah. Well, one of them towed a motorhome in there,
Yeah, they can bring their.
And the guy that was gonna tow it out didn't get off till 4:30 the next day.
Yeah. So they can bring their campers and things like that and do their own tailgating party, but they have to leave that night.
So now, in consideration though, that they're not gonna get an upfront spot in the motorhome, are they? That's gonna block potential 100 spots. That doesn't.
We'll have it spread out so that it
make
can be in such a way that it.
Make sure that.
Because it's it's such a big area.
Motorhomes are 10 foot tall.
Yeah, we can park them
standard
to the
truck is
side like we did before.
I got a
Yeah.
flatbed with a teepee on it. That one.
But most people come out, I have to say, most people don't stay by their vehicles during the fireworks. They end up kind of bringing their chairs forward and.
I will just say the tailgating experience is great. The best part about it is the way our officers get you out of.
Yeah, it's super fast.
Super fast.
Yeah.
The way you come out of there on back side of Plymouth. So.
And I won't continue with the other things I was going to mention. But anyway, if anyone wants information on the 4th of July, please go to discovercolumbiacounty.com, and that has the whole agenda on it, and we will update it as we get more information from the recreation team.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, Councilor Locke.
So last Wednesday, John and I met with Betsy about a few issues. One of the issues was the OLCC time limitations that they're putting on their committees and whatnot. And so because of the extended process that our tenants here have, and right now they've been working a year and have spent $1 million on their infrastructure, it doesn't make sense, and especially to go out and try and get funding for such things when you don't know whether you're going to end up getting a permit or not. So Betsy ended up calling the OLCC, and the OLCC did talk about our particular tenants, that they have no other tenants kind of like that these guys are going above and beyond what everybody else is doing. So that's nice to hear. But they've kind of said that time limit is sort of a guideline, and as long as they're working towards an end, that they'll extend the timeline for them. So they're going to write a letter to that effect for them so they can have that on file. We talked about the waterfront boardwalk, getting grants for that. She's going to help us out with that. We talked about becoming partners with Scappoose on our water and sewer, and she is going to help us out kind of on those talks and whatnot. We also talked about on our moving forward on the treatment pond project. She's in for that. And then we talked about the PGE issues at the mill, and one of her very good friends works for PGE, and so she's said she would help us out on those type of things too. And then she wanted to know where we had been, and that she wanted us to come and ask her for more things.
Okay, because we've been here the whole time.
Well, John did say that, that he's kind of left her alone because he knows she's been busy and whatnot. But anyway, she said that, that we can come and talk to her whenever we want to. So she extended the hand for us.
Hey, not everybody at once, all right?
So,
Well, I mean, in her defense, she is in the county a lot, and I think maybe we don't realize how often she's in our neighborhood, and to get her attention. We assume she's going to come visit us, but if we don't say anything, she doesn't know.
Right.
Yep.
So, and if we keep saying it, eventually things will happen. But I'm assuming you're calling on me next.
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
I just, Chief Moss didn't mention the kind of the keynote address that he gave for the 8th graders at the middle school. The St. Helens Middle School does not traditionally do a graduation of kids, and he got a lot of positive publicity, a lot of positive accolades. Lisa said it was the biggest applause of any presentation they gave. A lot of people online were like, they didn't do this last year. But I just, in talking to many students from the ages 13 to 25, they all noticed that they wanted that message. They wanted to hear that sooner. They didn't want it to wait clear till they were seniors. So you resonated with a lot of kids and a lot of folks, and it was
Good
a
job,
really,
Terry.
really well received, and we really appreciate all that you give here. You leave big shoes. But, and then I have, Shauna came to Youth Council this week, and so did Arts Commission came and met with us. I had had a couple other conversations with Shauna and with a couple of youth counselors about maybe reconfiguring, looking at ways to better attract members to Youth Council, making it a little bit more interactive, growing the group. So I look forward to reporting back on that. The other thing that I wondered, and I don't know if we do this, I asked John, but John's overwhelmed and he's not here, but a way to market all the work that we're doing in parks and all the works we're doing with rec, that I just don't know if it reaches places. As I'm going out there in other communities, I see them marketing their outdoor recreation opportunities aside from events, so that they're showing that you have tennis courts and showing that you have picnic opportunities, because people that work in Portland don't know what great facilities we have here. So I think sometimes we need to do a little education that people don't realize. A few years ago when we had camping at the park, McCormick Park kind of got a black eye with what happened there with the camping, and we've eliminated that, and it's a really nice thing, and the guys are working really hard on it. But unless we go back and re-educate the community that this is all cleaned up and you can have picnics there and you're safe to do that, people don't know that that it's all cleaned up. I don't think most people, once they saw the yuck, they went away and never came back. But I just wanted to see if down the road, if we could look at ways to better educate the community as to what great free outdoor recreation things we are. The staff's working hard, Public Works is working hard, but we don't ever show the community what awesome things. A couple different people, I took pictures of Nob Hill Nature Park hikes that I did, Dalton Lake hikes that I did, and people are like, where is this place? Is it right here in St. Helens? And I go, yeah, it's right there. People had no idea. So I think that's more knowledge for people, that they just don't know what great things we have.
The funny thing is, we got a book that shows all our perks in it.
Yeah, but people don't read.
Matter of fact, I think it's maybe missing one.
Yeah. So that's all I
newest
got.
one. Okay, thank you. Councilor Khan?
Thank you, Neil, for responding so quickly when we had complained about something that needed repairing at Campbell Park. I appreciate that quick response, and I'm sure that the person that cited it did too. We got a parade.
Yep.
Ribbon from our truck. Cool truck, fun day.
It was.
Everybody knows the mayor. Hi, Mayor Rick. And thank you for lunch.
Yeah.
Awesome chicken.
Wonderful, huh?
Awesome
It was
baked
absolutely
chicken.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Good.
I didn't get lunch.
Should have been on the truck.
You weren't there.
Should have been on the truck.
Oh, yeah, I was.
I had you on phone.
Yesterday morning, I went to the annual CASA breakfast. CASA volunteers are appointed by the courts to protect children in our overburdened child welfare system, and they make sure that their critical needs are met, and they give them a voice in court. 78% of their budget is done through fundraising like they were doing yesterday, and I would love to see as many people as possible support them, either by volunteering as CASAs if you're able to do that, or by donating to the organization. And they have a Facebook site and a website that you can communicate with them. But I think it's really worthwhile. I saw the positive benefits when Patrick was a CASA. You made an impact on a child's life that I witnessed, and that I'll always remember that. CIT training's coming up 16th through the 20th, so I'm going to ask you again for a budget to get snacks. Up to $400. I won't go over that. I'll spend less for the snacks for the crisis intervention training, law enforcement.
Good.
That's for, how many days is the training again?
5 days.
So
$5 days,
$400
40
for
hours.
5 days of snacks.
Right.
I'm
And
fine.
maybe less than that. I spent less than that this time.
Yeah, hold
Super.
those prices down.
I will if I can. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Doug?
Trying to stay true to form, I will address the questions of our visitors' comments. There were questions, there were concerns. Steve Topaz always steps forward and says, I have a question for the council. And that was, what was our vision with the Riverfront District? And our vision, I think contrary to what he is saying about how much money the land is worth and those kinds of things, our vision is raising the bar for quality of life issues in that area. The economy has to be a service-based economy if it's going to revolve around people. Now, anyone who's been out of the town and traveled through cities that are on rivers know that those are tourist-based economies. All throughout Europe, that is the #1 economy in any city that's located on a river, is the tourism. And so I don't see it much different than here. And so 6-7 years ago, when we went all in to look at putting the overlay of commercial and residential on the riverfront with community access, and then going through the community process, getting accolades from the League of Oregon Cities for our governance process, I think we're on the right track. Matter of fact, I know we're on the right track for our citizens, our citizenry, and for small businesses to relocate and locate on the banks of the Columbia. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a hotel coming, so where we have visitors and we have events in those hotels that are centered around crafts and workshops. I know we all heard the pitch from the Embarcadero group of saying that their model is to bring in workshops every week throughout the winter, so that there's some kind of a craft, there's some kind of group orientations going on, those kinds of issues. So I don't know, I feel really good about that. And to value the place as an industrial site, well, we decided not to go there because it was for sale for 5 or 6 years and no takers, and it was just sitting there. And so that's when the city went forward and took the initiative to obtain that property for $3 million. And we're going to get the citizens of St. Helens is going to get that back tenfold without a doubt in terms of revenue, but mostly in terms of, I don't measure it that way as much as I do quality of life. And I think it's a good investment for our citizens. And the whole idea of, will our citizens have access to the riverfront? Of course. That's a big part of that. So that's his question. That was his kind of concern. He mentioned Nob Hill, and we have our bicycle and pedestrian people designing trails through there for people to walk on, and so the whole thing is a people-oriented endeavor. So that's one of the answers to his question is, what's your vision? And it's simply, and I know we've all talked about this, is that we want it for our citizens, we want it for livability. And
did you mention that there's also still industrial property that we haven't?
We have so much industrial property around. Exactly. The port has it, and we have it in different areas. But this area down on the waterfront, I think, is almost sacred in terms of, you can't find another place like that on the river these days that has a potential of people accessing the waterfront, and the view is spectacular. Got the mountains, the river, sailboat races, 13 nights, everything is starting to happen. So that's that question. Then the question came up from Patrick, not a question, a concern, and I really liked what he had to say. Possibly, we might take a look at that in maybe not a certain amount of time of doing that in terms of your proposal all in, but we could do that every other month. We could do it once every third month, something like that, and try to phase that kind of thing in. So there is potential of us easing away from our work sessions. And one of the things I really like about our work sessions is that, and I tried to bring that up today when I first questioned it, was that the staff is here and they're here with their time. If they weren't, they'd have to come back and lose some of their time in their regular hours of being here all night long. So, and I don't think it's a financial thing. It might be for some of you, but I think you're all salaried. And that was my concern at one time as well. So, and I just adapted to it, Patrick. And but I think you raise a good concern that way, and I hope I owe it to you to give you my reaction to it. Okay, moving on to parks. Wow, wasn't that a great presentation from Carmen? I mean, and we restructured Parks Commission, and with the Parks Commission, we now each commissioner has things to do. They pick a park, they report on it. There's committees, and now we have the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee there, adding to our parks. I'm excited about it. It's moving forward at a great pace. We've got great people like Carmen coming onto that commission. Wow, I'm very excited to be there. There's another exciting thing is that we've got it finished. This is the finished plan. It's been a concept for a long time. It's been discussed, and this is the new Veterans Plaza. And so maybe we can download that. I'll get Andrew Nemi to drop off to the city so we can start to publish this. But this is it. I think we've already went the go ahead for all of that. And
love the stage.
Boy, talk about teamwork. We had citizens who contributed to this. We've had the veterans who contributed. We have in-kind from our staff and from our city that have contributed. And then we have an engineering group, a professional engineering, South Columbia engineering group has contributed heavily to this. We are also now looking at people, concrete companies and trucking companies looking at contributing to in-kind as well. Wow, what a team effort this has been. And it all started out with guess who? Jen Dishmo, who did the master plan for the parks. And she went ahead and initiated a grant. And that grant went forward. And then the veterans hopped onto it, matched it. Our city staff is excited about it. Our public works people are excited about it. It's all in the mix. And it's the grand opening for this is going to be 11/11/11. That's November 11th at 11 a.m. in the morning. That's our Veterans Day celebration. What a great place to have a celebration is that plaza. I'm very excited about that. Sand Island is coming along. We're waiting on, guess what? I guess it's on the attorney's desk. The negotiations between what the city is going to do and what Mr. Hendrickson is going to do. And once that goes, he's ready to go over there with his shovel and get the camping grounds all set. He's ready to go. So it's kind of on our shoulders at this point. So I hope we get going as soon as we possibly can. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Okay, waterfront's very active. I love this time of year. People out walking, people playing in the splash park, fishing off the dock. Parade was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Driving that old truck was really.
You guys look great.
I just happened to have. They said right, we're red, white, and blue, and I just happened to have that stuff, so it worked out.
More decorations next time.
Yeah, a few more. Want to win that mayor's trophy.
I don't think that'd be cricket.
Citizens Day in the Park, August 18th. I got most of the sponsors on board, but 18th. No. Yes. 11th. Okay, I gotta get back to you on that.
I think she might be right.
Yes.
I have it on the 11th on my calendar.
Okay, August 11th. It is August 11th. I'm sure of it. I'm sure it's August 11th. Yes.
Live from City Council.
I messed up and told one sponsor, and I know who that is, Todd at Sunshine Pizza, the 18th, so I need to call him when I leave here. I'm writing a note now. But, so last year we approved 1,000, and I'd like to do that again this year, right, roughly give or take, to sponsor that. Good family fun event for everybody. And I had a question for Tina about our stereo equipment. You had forget his name. Go through it. Columbiato. No. It's all fixed. It would be available though. A few speakers and. Okay, yep. And me and Councilor Locker are also familiar with equipment, so we should have no problem getting that going. I think it would be one more less cost we could avoid. So that'll be coming down the pipe. I need to get going on it before next council meeting, so I need to get an approval of the 1,000 from you guys.
Out of the
council funds.
Out of council discretionary funds?
Yep.
Fine by me.
Keith?
I'm not going to use them.
Okay. All right. So, and then, Matt, I really appreciate, one last thing was a retreat. We need to have a retreat because we're doing the city county dinner, and we need a retreat to discuss that.
Not without a facilitator.
Not without
We need a facilitator to keep the peace at a retreat. I want a moderator if we have a retreat again.
Really?
Yes, really. Seriously. I want someone to work us through the agenda.
Okay.
Chuck Dodry.
There are a lot of organizations that have facilitators available. I think we can find one.
Well, basically, I just want this retreat to talk about our CIT dinner, or not CIT, our city county dinner, because we're hosting it.
So you just
and
want
I would
a
like
planning session, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but it still has to be a retreat. We have to announce it. We're going to all be there talking because I want each of us to pick what I would like to see as mayor. Would everybody pick one thing and kind of do a presentation?
I think, wouldn't that
We
just
got
be a
enough
special
going
meeting?
on.
That wouldn't have to be a retreat. That would just be a special meeting.
Well, we have to do that soon because that's in August sometime too, right? Yes.
Just
because we're coming up on one meeting.
retreats
between
are
now
always
and then.
announced. They're not private or hidden or secretive.
No.
We've had
No, they're always public.
press has always come.
Right.
Yeah.
We've had press
They
at
are
a couple of
open.
retreats.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're not sequestered or.
Yep. Never have been. So that, and then Measure 5, this right here. I'm taking these extra few copies. Matt handed us this tax story. Business is what we are lacking here in St. Helens. Measure 5 came through and said, this is what you're running on. The state, with every city, and said, this is what you're running on. What have you been running on for the last few years? We had 5 mills in St. Helens. I kind of just did a rough figure. Over 1,000 jobs, well over 1,000 jobs of $20 hour paying jobs, good living wage jobs that are gone. Not only that, they paid their fair share of water, sewer, electricity,
Supporting sport
and
events.
tax. So the state said, nope, what have you guys been running on? That's why St. Helens is number 3 in Columbia County. Number 1 being the lowest would be the town of Prescott, 2 being Columbia City, 3 being St. Helens. So
There are a lot of variables in that too. Margaret reminded me as I was handing that out, the Scappoose Library has its own library district. So even in their property tax rate, they don't fund the library. So there are a lot of variables between those cities that you see. But
Yes.
St. Helens is still one of the lowest.
yes. So I guess when you see me up here really getting after, we need some business back in town, some living wage jobs, because that money stays here. It does. That's where I'm going with that. So I'm just making that clear to everybody, not here, because you all understand it, but anybody that's listening that watches us, numbers don't lie. If you'd like a graft, email me, call me, I'll give you one. So it was an eye-opener to me when I came in here, when we started doing budgeting last year, and especially this year, even learning more. So with that, that's all I have to any other business before I close it.
Just so we could have an executive session.
Yes, but I have to adjourn before we can do that. Yep. Yeah. You got a couple things you need to discuss, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, adjourn. We're just gonna take a quick break so we can we have to be back here at 5:45.
See how much liquid I drank?
Holy cow.